Praise the Lord, and on behalf of Rakshana TV, I welcome each and every one of you to this epic, monumental, that's the least I could say, of a debate, interfaith discussion, whatever you want to call it, on between Hinduism and Christianity worldviews and belief systems. I call it as epic, monumental, the reason being it's extremely rare. I've seen tons of debates on Christianity versus Islam, Christianity, atheism, Christianity between, across faiths or between belief systems, oneness Pentecostals, Jehovah's Witnesses, between atheists, but never, if ever, have I seen a debate of Hinduism and any other faith. And to that end, of course, in other languages in India, like in the South Indian languages, there are a lot of these debates happening, but never in English. And to that end, I really appreciate ISKCON for reaching out to Sakshi Apologetics Network for a discussion, a debate on a very nice subject, because there are a lot of misconception across various faiths. So the topic is very interesting: Holy Bible or the Hindu Puranas, which is more scientific. And I was so much looking forward to this topic because you keep hearing that there are so many contradictions in the Bible, or there are so many stories in the Puranas which doesn't make any sense and all those things. So we have a very esteemed panel from ISKCON, and on request from ISKCON, this was converted into a panel discussion. So there is two people from ISKCON and two people from Sakshi Apologetics Network representing the Christian belief system. And from ISKCON, of course, there is Mr. Siddharth Chabra, who is the head of ISKCON of the Michigan chapter, and there is Luke Wenderlibben, I really hope I got the name right, who is running a very well-known online channel on astrology. I leave it to them to introduce themselves fully. And now please stay with me on this, brothers and sisters, because this is not a program for tearing each other down or trying to show that we are better or they are down or this doesn't make sense type. This is a discussion, more of an academic nature. It is not meant to offend anyone or to, brave anybody's sensitivities or whatever. And so I request everyone to look at this as a respectable discussion where people of different understandings come together to discuss various viewpoints, cross-question each other. This is very important. You see, looking at the political environment in our country, it is so important that people, instead of jumping to conclusions about each other, hurting each other physically, mentally or whatever, it's better to sit across and try and understand each other. The world is such a beautiful place. This is such a beautiful country. So to that end, I really appreciate ISKCON for coming up with this debate discussion. Because it's why I find it so interesting and so looking forward to is because so many other flag bearers of Hindutva, apologetics and all, such as Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, who's I can say as a flag bearer of all these, the Hindu worldview in the US. He literally ran away from a debate with Sakshi Apologetics Network after confirming. Then in India, the so-called Agniveer, they also absconded. So there is Neeraj Atri, another well-known guy online. He also ran away. And to that end, I was so happy to hear that ISKCON had reached out. And there's this beautiful book that is written by Siddharth Chabra, The Big Bang and the Sages. So it's a very interesting book. I read it and I was really surprised and happy to see so much effort he's put in the calculations into giving a different interpretation to how the Puranas can be looked at and can be scientific. And I was so much looking forward to hearing him. Honestly, Praveen, I was so happy to see this debate, and I came all the way just to be there as a part of this monumental event. And I really hope, guys, that all in this country that people come forward for such discussions. It's not meant to showing anybody down. It's meant for bringing people together.
Yeah, definitely. The purpose of this debate is definitely not to put anybody down.
Yes.
Definitely not to show the other person's worldview.
We can learn so much. We can learn so much.
It is more of a platform where we can appreciate each other, where we can learn from each other, and of course we would also like to be very honest.
Yes.
And question,
very important.
Cross question. So there will be opportunity for both the parties to cross question each other and find out, what our worldview talks about. Are we really in sync with what we are trying to do, stuff like that. So this is definitely a good platform for us to have a meaningful engagement with interfaith discussions.
Like I really hope all these other people in ISKCON or from other sects in Hinduism would come up for such discussions. It'll change the environment so much of people across the country.
As you rightly said in the beginning, the points that you made. In the southern part of India, like Kerala and also in AP and Telangana, at least in Hyderabad, we do have such discussions. We do, this studio actually witnessed a lot of discussions like that. We invited people from, various religious backgrounds. We discussed, and it's all done in a very friendly manner. It's all done in a very cordial way. We respect each other. We still are friends. So all of that is.
And see, this is what I'm hoping, that at the end of this entire discussion, we walk away as friends. We agree to disagree, but we still walk away as friends, respecting each other. No shouting, screaming doesn't happen here. You know what, Praveen? I've seen a few of these discussions online on Rakshana TV, and it's in Malayalam, it's in Telugu, Tamil, and stuff. And I was wondering, I don't know those languages. When is English going to happen? And then you invite all these people, they all run away, and ISKCON come and talk to us.
Well, this is very unique compared to the other people, because the ISKCON representatives are very they're well respected. For example, the book that you just showed is launched by one of the close office bearers of the Prime Minister himself. So, and not just that, Luke runs a website which is very popular, and he truly talks about the universe being the Akhanda Brahmanda, being God's body itself. And he's very good at astrology.
I visited his website all on astrology. I really wanted to understand the science behind it, and so I think
they are the right people to represent
Please come online. We're looking forward to hearing from you. So, okay, what I'll do is that quickly I'll run through the background of the formats. I'll quickly do that. So, okay, guys, now this was such a vast topic, and we had initially thought of 4.5 hours. All right, it was supposed to go on from 4 p.m. India time to 8:30 Indian time, and but just last evening, on request from the ISKCON panel, it was cut down. So now it is 2.5 hours. So earlier it was like a 5-minute intro, then a 30-minute
each
5-minute each intro, and then 30-minute each. Presentation, like an opening statement, then 4 sessions of rebuttals each of 10 minutes each, and then there's a closing, and then there was a crossfire of 20 minutes, and then there was an audience question. So after request from ISKCON, this was cut down to a very short like a opening statement directly of 30 minutes, then just 1 rebuttal. I really want to see more of this, guys, as agreed by the panel. The start off will be done by the ISKCON panel. So for everything, whether it is a presentation, introduction, or whatever, it will be done by the ISKCON panel. And this time, unfortunately, there is only Siddharth. And in the future too, Siddharth, I assure you, in case you would like to have the second, third debates that you had suggested in different languages, I'm looking forward to it, right? And so even the initial 30 minutes, if you want to have more time, go for it. I'm really wanting to hear you expound on the hyperdimensions and how the science pans out, right? So over to you, Siddharth. You have 5 minutes to introduce yourself and your content. That's not the opening statement, but just to introduce yourself, your work, and what you're looking forward to, and all that. So just 5 minutes, but not an opening statement. Opening statement, you get 30 minutes. After that, it's to the Sakshi team. All right, over to you, Siddharth.
So thank you, Praveen and Jerry, and thank you, Narendra, for the opportunity to present my thoughts on this topic. My name is Siddharth. I'm a data scientist based in Michigan, and my interest has always been in Sanskrit and the Sanskrit text. So in 2018, 2019, 2020, last 3 years, I've been working on a couple of research projects where I'm trying to understand that is there some information from the Puranas or the Vedas which can be used in modern scientific work. And because I'm trained as a scientist, I'm all about, my main focus is rigor. Often, it's the case that in India, a lot of things go out, say on WhatsApp or other places where big claims are made about whether it be Hindu philosophy or the Krishna philosophy or the Muslim philosophy. I'm here for rigor. And with that rigor in my mind, and I did the research. My main goal behind all this was to show that the world in which we live in, that world is not a random piece of puzzle which has just come together just due to chance. I wanted to show that the scriptures, they have information that shows this world was planned by agents of God. And when I found such evidence in such abundance in the Vedic scriptures, I was really happy. It made my day. You know, hey, I've been doing this scientific stuff, data science, for such a long time. I had never had a chance to present an evidence which could really punch in the face of people who are atheistic. That was my really an opposition. I wanted to be going in front of, you know, if you come into the Western world, that's the main opposition to God's words. It is the atheistic scientist. And when I could come up with some strong data empirical evidence, I was like, hey, we have finally a case at which we can punch in their face and say, hey, here you can read the scriptures, and here they are telling us information which predates any of your scientific discovery and has been discovered only recent times. Now, what do you have to say about the presence of God? So I was very delighted. And with that, goal in the mind, and with that, inspiration, I wrote the book and presented my findings. So that's going to be my main presentation today. I'm going to share some of the results which I found and which I discussed in my book. And thank you again for the opportunity to have this dais with esteemed speakers like Jerry and Praveen and yourself, Narendra. Thank you.
Such a pleasure hearing you, Siddharth. Such a pleasure, and I appreciate that the point you said about scientific rigor. I could see that in the book. It reminds me of a great verse from the Holy Bible. It is, I think it is chapter 18, verse 17, which says, "The first person to speak in court always seems right until his opponent begins to question him." So at this time, I look forward to the questioning and the presentation, even by the Christian side. And there is Jerry and there is Praveen. So over to you guys, just 5 minutes total. You'll have to present yourself and the book. You can start off with what you're doing with all these books on your table.
Yeah, okay.
Have you actually read all these books?
Well, we are facing facing somebody who's a data scientist, and he's working on his data. So we wanted to be ready with the data. So that's the reason these books are. Anyways, if my time starts now,
yes, time is started, man. Your time is started.
I would like to go. Well, greetings to you, Siddharth, and also all the audience. This is Praveen and this is Jerry. We both will be representing Christian side this evening. And our argument primarily is the Holy Bible is the paradigm giver for the modern science. And also our argument is that the Puranic worldview contradicts the modern scientific paradigm. This is the primary argument that we will be bringing on to the table. We will not be taking any scientific data from the Holy Bible, as those are incidental and subject of the Bible and not the purpose of the Bible. It simply means Bible is not a science book, but there are scientific facts which we will also be talking about it. The people often ask questions which is Bible not attempting to answer. The biblical authors did not intend to teach science, but what was necessary for salvation was the content of the Bible. When the scripture writers wrote on physical phenomena, they wrote of how it appeared to the human eye. So primarily, this is a paradigm-giving book, but it is not a science book. That's the approach that we are going to take. But we will also be taking the scientific data and defending it. We will see it when the questions comes in. So the Bible doesn't claim to teach the science, but Puranas claim it. For example, 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16 says, the Holy Scripture is given for righteous living. So this is not a science book. Genesis chapter 2 verse 19 says, observe and name the animals. Simply means it gives you a paradigm to observe and experiment and build your case. So there is paradigm right there. Whereas the Bhagavata Purana says, Sri Shuka Uvacha, Atra Sargo Visargasthanam Poshanam Mutayaha, Manvantare Shanukata Nirodho Muktirashreha, Dashamasya Visuddha Yardham, Navanamihi Lakshanam. So basically it is talking about, Shuka is saying, Sarga, Visarga, Sthana, Posana and the Mutis and the Manvantaras, Isanukatas, Nirodha, Mukti, Asraya. These are the 10 topics discussed in Bhagavata Purana. So that's the reason we have these Puranas. Puranas claim that they are teaching science. So that is the reason our dear brother Siddharth is also here, with the data that he has got. So in the Bible, cosmos is the handiwork of God. So when we look at the cosmos, we understand, we learn how God did this cosmos. Whereas in Purana, cosmos is the manifestation of God. It is the Brahma, the Virat Rupa of God Himself. For example, Purushasya Mukha Brahma Kshetra Metasya Bhahavaha Urvo Vaishyo Bhagavataha, simply saying how human beings have evolved from God, and then Bhulokaha Kalpitaha Padbhyam Bhuvarloko Asya Nabhitaha Urdva Swaloko Urasa Maharloko Mahatmanaha, simply saying how God's body is a manifestation in the universe. So that is the reason we will be questioning the approach of the Puranic way of saying how God is and how He manifests Himself in the universe. Coming to the question, for example, so are you saying that the Bible is erroneous with science? It doesn't match with it? No. Where Bible is silent, we want to be silent. Where Bible speaks for itself, we want to speak and represent it. And, for example, there are miracles that Bible talks about, and we take that as God's direct intervention within the laws of the nature to alter things so that He displays His glory in it. So there are miracles, and we don't seek explanation from the science for miracles, but there are the handiwork of God. When we observe, we will definitely try and understand what science is and what truth is from the scientific perspective also. Siddhartha Chabraji, as you showed in the book that he wrote, man is climbing and he sees his sage sitting on top of it.
Yes,
yeah,
that's pretty interesting.
That's basically it's a pictorial representation of what Robert Jastrow examined the Bible, well, not Puranas. And in chapter 9, page number 106, he referred to Bible and theologians. In page number 107 said, scientists who scale the mountains of ignorance by reason, when he was about to reach the top, he was greeted by theologians sitting there for centuries. So that's what we will be talking about. Theologians, what we have been speaking, and what the science is confirming and catching up with us on a daily basis. So if the imitation is the best form of flattery, we are flattered. Anyways, thank you very much for this time.
You're just on the edge. All right. So thank you for a beautiful introduction, brother Siddharth and Praveen Jerry. Okay, now Praveen Jerry, you did not really speak anything about yourself, so I'll just take a 2 seconds to just let the people know who you are. 1 minute. Give me a second. Scrolling to all this. Okay, yeah. Okay, now about Jerry, he's been involved in Christian apologetics for about 2 decades now. He is also one of the founding members of Sakshi Apologetics Network, to whom the ISKCON reached out for a debate. And as a Sakshi Apologetics Network resource person, he has been involved in numerous interreligious dialogues, debates, open forums in universities, public rebuttals. He has also represented Christianity publicly in probably the largest Christian Islamic debate in the world. Now, he is also part of panel that headed a debate against one of the largest Islamic sects in the world. And he has publicly refuted allegations against the Christian faith from Hindutva ideologies such as Mr. Rajiv Malhotra, Dr. N. Gopalakrishnan, and so many others. He also was one of the 2 members who submitted responses to Justice Somashekara Commission of Karnataka to the theological questions raised by Hindutva leaders. He has also done a point-by-point refutation of Dayanand Saraswati's books, Satyarth Prakash, and he has done various series of talks against atheist speakers and also the Christian contribution to building of India and the world. About Praveen, he is an entrepreneur from Hyderabad, and he heads a fintech company among a few more startups. He has also been in various interfaith representations, debated many Indian religious scholars and political representatives such as P.J. Abdul Maulvi, Muhammad Arif, Fazlur Rahman, Koteshwara Sharma, Venkateswara Raju. I think these are from the Hindutva side?
Yeah, both sides, yes.
Okay, okay. On behalf of, again, this was in Tamil, so I don't
Telugu.
Telugu. Sorry, yeah, for me. Okay. He is very active online and has his own YouTube channel where he posts regularly. He is author of 3 books. Okay, it's in Tamil, I can't read it. So anyway, he is the father of 10 kids, and you heard me right. He is the father of 10 kids, of which 2 are his biological and the 8 are adopted, and he's taking care. So that's a great work that he's doing. And brother Siddharth, from your introduction, I understood that from the Puranas, you understood that there is a clear-cut understanding of how the world has been formed and how God has made and is a part of the overall system. And from what Praveen said about the Holy Bible, he mentioned that the book about the Holy Bible is not a book on science, but it's a book more on theology. And it's not a book on understanding how the world works, but more on what God wants from you. So, okay, that's a great start. And before the rubber hits the road, audience, be there and do not forget to circulate the link from which you're watching this show. We would want more and more people to hear what the panelists and of course Brother Siddharth has to say, to hear about the Puranas and then the Christian side too. This is very, very exciting, and I really hope you are excited too. Do pass it around to your friends, be it Hindus, Christians, your churches. Let them know how a discussion, a respectable discussion happens. And now we are moving into the very, very interesting, the core where the rubber hits the road. We'll be getting into the opening statements. So in this opening statements, it is 30 minutes and each side gets 30 minutes to present their case as to what they believe in and why. And now I really look forward to hearing Brother Siddharth speak about his data analysis of the Puranas. And again, to all my viewers, you've got a few hundred people live at this time, to please circulate the link, let others also see and learn and grow. All right, Brother Siddharth, your time starts now. I hope you're there. Siddharth, brother, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, your time starts now. Please go ahead. 30 minutes, but feel free to take as much as possible as you want. We are all looking forward to hearing your side. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Narendra, and thank you, the team there, coordinating all these technical issues. I appreciate and understand it must be difficult handling so many different worlds and so many different settings. So I would like to begin first by adding to what Praveen started speaking about. He was sharing how the Puranas are actually teaching science. First of all, I would like to define two characteristics which define science. Science means something which is repeatable and something which is testable. And yes, in these terms, knowledge which is repeatable and testable, that is given in the Puranas. Shri Shrukata Goswami quotes, as my brother Praveen quoted, Atra Sargo Visargascha. It is giving the knowledge about creation and destruction. And this is something which I will discuss in the Puranas, in my presentation today, how the knowledge is given in the Puranas about creation and destruction, or recreation and destruction, is very precise. Now sometimes the holy books would say things which cannot be verified by the current paradigms of science. That doesn't make those statements false. Anything which can't be verified is called unfalsifiable, not necessarily false. There's a difference between the two. And the reason why I claim that title, because whether you take the Bible or the Quran or the Bhagavad Puran or the Vedas, the Puranas, you would find statements there which cannot be verified by current models of empirical science. For an example, heaven or hell. Show me a spaceship which can fly to heaven or hell. It can verify that for us. It cannot be. So there are statements found through all the books which cannot be verified. However, in my today's presentation, I'm going to specifically talk about, make a case that how the Puranas are a revelation of God. And a proof of that is that the extraordinary amount of knowledge and the extraordinary quality of knowledge which is found in the Puranas. So there are many ways of teaching knowledge. As I present on my presentation, in the slide which I'm showing there are two ways of primarily gaining knowledge. One is an ascending, other is a descending. When I say an ascending method is a method based out of methods like logic, deduction, or induction. Whereas descending is when somebody who knows something and he tells you. Just to do an example. For example, you are standing in some valley and you see there is some smoke coming out on top of a mountain. When you see the smoke coming out of the top of the mountain, you know from a previous experience that whenever there is smoke, there is fire. So you do an induction. Okay, I have seen in the past there was fire and there was smoke. I see smoke now on top of the mountain. There must be a fire on top of the mountain. That's called an inductive way of gaining knowledge, or Arohan. That's how modern science works. It sees an example, sees an analogy, sees different things in labs, draws induction cases, and comes with an answer. Now, suppose a guy comes down, running down from the mountain. He has gone for his morning talk from the mountain and he has just arrived. And you ask him, hey, did you see fire on the top of the mountain? And the person tells you, oh no, that's not a fire. That's actually a cloud. I was just there. There is no fire on the mountain. Now, when a person who has just right now come down from the mountain, he tells you that there is no fire on the mountain, and and you can see from the person's face that he's sweating, he has just come down, and he seems like a normal, reliable person, then you are like, maybe my deduction was wrong. That's called descending knowledge. When you receive an answer from an object, from a person or an authority who is knowledgeable and who is trustworthy and who seems to have a reliable source of knowledge. So these are two different ways of gaining knowledge, Arohan and Avarohan. Now, modern science fits in the category of Arohan, ascending, and the scriptures fit in the category of Avarohan, where we get knowledge from messengers of God. In the case of Bible, it is the angels or the people who came after Jesus. In the case of the Puranas, in the case of the Vedas, they are coming from the sages like Vyasadeva and other rishis who claim to have a direct one-to-one vision, a one-to-one meeting with the Lord, that they're able to hear Lord's vision and they're able to write it down, what the Lord is speaking to them. So that is the Vedas and Puranas, the Avarohan knowledge. Can you go to the next slide? When we have a knowledge, now there could be, we're living in this world of misinformation, WhatsApp University, Twitter University. People post all kinds of things on the social media. How do we know a piece of knowledge is, true? Because how do we know the person who's speaking a piece of knowledge is true? Suppose somebody comes with another book tomorrow and says, this is a book's XYZ, and I have written down all the predictions and all the systems of the world. Do you accept it? This is the Holy Scripture. I have just discovered it. I had a meeting with God and I got it. So whenever we are faced with knowledge, human beings are innately designed to test it. They question it. They want to know whether this piece of knowledge is correct or not. So there are two ways of testing the knowledge. One is subjective, other is objective. Subjective is that if you follow the knowledge given in that book and you apply in your life, you feel some result. You're able to see the same result which is being described. Now in this regard, the Vedas and Puranas have been talking for the longest time that if you follow this way of living life, you will feel freedom from envy and anger. You will feel tremendous amount of happiness. And people feel that. That's why there are more than 1 billion followers of Hinduism for the last thousands of years. So the subjective verification is there in the case of Vedas and Puranas for the longest time. When we go to the objective verification, the next slide, this is where this is where my contribution or my today's presentation is centered around. That there is indeed an objective verification also. Now notice that we are making an extraordinary claim. What's the extraordinary claim? The claim we are making is that these Vedas and Puranas are actually a handiwork of God Himself. Now, God is an amazing personality. He's full of supreme, He is full of amazing qualities. He's primarily 6 qualities. 1, He is the one who is the most attractive. 2nd, He's the most powerful. 3rd, He's the most knowledgeable. 4th, He is the most renounced. 5th, He has the most number of wealth. And 6th, He is the most famous. So with these 6 qualities, when we talk of a person of His category, then we need to also come up with claims from the books, from the Vedas, which we say have been written by Him, which are of that extraordinary nature. Otherwise, if the book just says the earth is round and hey, scientists have found the earth is round, that's not an extraordinary amount of claim, and that won't be an objective proof. Now somebody may say, hey, our books don't need an objective proof. Well, I'm not saying that every scripture or every holy book needs an objective proof. However, in the case of Vedas and Puranas, there is a presence of it. As I said, there are 2 ways of getting knowledge. You may be receiving knowledge only and truly through the process of our own or descending knowledge, and you may not have a desire to seek an objective proof. But for those people who have a desire to get an objective proof of God, we have it here. I don't think myself presenting just one religion, Hinduism, Christianity, Muslim. I personally see myself presenting a work which is in defense of theism. Because Puranas, sometimes people misinterpret, don't ask somebody to change their religion, neither the Vedas. What they ask a person is to change their lifestyle, where the lifestyle is centered around God, where the lifestyle is all about praying and remembering God. So please don't take me as somewhere as a preacher of one religion or the other. I'm here as a person speaking on behalf of theism. And the reason why I called Jerry for this debate is because of a presentation which he made on the YouTube, where he was claiming that these books, the Hindu knowledge and the Vedas and Puranas, are quite archaic compared to the biblical knowledge. And he was claiming that because the number of Nobel Prize winners in the last 100 years are mostly from Christian background, it is the Christianity which is the all almighty, paradigm or the crucible for modern science. So therefore, the Puranas are archaic and the Christian Bible is superior. I was against and I was opposing that kind of presentation, and therefore I invited him for this debate. So going back to the topic here, what kind of extraordinary claim can we make from the Puranas, from the Vedas, which can show to any materialist that yes, indeed there is God? So first, I'm going to discuss in this talk 3 data points which I've discovered from the Puranas. I've also published a paper, in fact 2 papers, and I've also written a book and got reviews from a lot of scientists, as you can see in my book. So these, of course, anything new when it's discovered, it takes time for it to perforate, for it to propagate and spread to other scientists. And so I'm continuously receiving a lot of feedback from different scientists. So I'm going to discuss 3 important discoveries, 3 important data points from the Puranas, which are of extraordinary significance. The first one is the Big Bang. Since humanity has been born, humans have been wondering, hey, when did we come about? When did this Earth come about? When did the solar system came about? This question has been there in the mind of people from the longest time, and there has been a lot of attempts made at it until the until the beginning of the 20th century. The claim for almost 100 years or so, maybe a couple of hundred years or so, was that there is no beginning to the universe. And why did so let me step back. In the 15th century, after the Renaissance, modern science and Christianity took 2 roads. Somehow or other, due to the crimes done by the monarchs in the Western Hemisphere and their association with the Christianity, caused people to dislike Christianity. It was not in the teachings of Christianity to despise the scientists, but the rulers. How they do. They use religion as a means to rule people and try to divide people, and that's what they did. They used the religion as a tool to punish the scientific and the inquisitive people at that time, and that caused a divide. Now, since that divide happened, scientists were opposed to the idea of in any way of God being the creator. So, if you look at the common presentations in the 1800s or 1700s, they used to espouse a universe without a beginning. And that was great, because if there is no universe, if it's an eternal universe, there doesn't have to be creator. But comes 1900, Einstein, with his theory of relativity and his findings, presented a model. And due to that model, and then the observation by Hubble telescope, they came to a conclusion that there must have been a beginning to the universe. Now, if there must have been a beginning to the universe, when did that happen? So the question became quite solid in science, that yes, the fact became quite solid in science that there must have been a beginning in early 1900s, and the question became very pressing, that when did the universe begin? Now, as you can see in my slide, in the bottom row, row I show there, that science has been changing its opinion about the beginning of the universe year after year. When I say changing, I mean that they had a very long set of ideas, and over the years they become their observation, their analysis have pointed to a singular date, and they're coming as we see in this diagram, as we see in the bottom row, they're coming slowly and slowly, coming closer to what has been stated in the Puranas for the longest time. So I discovered in my analysis of the Puranas state that the universe began 13.819 billion years ago. And if you look at what the scientists say, they say the universe, this is the latest finding, 2018 paper, submitted after analysis of flying based on the research, or based on observation by the flying satellite, is 13.801. The difference between the two is only 0.08%. So, as per the modern science, the latest discoveries coming out, right, fresh papers coming out in 2018, 2015, the universe had a Big Bang, and that was 13.801 billion years ago, whereas the data given by the Puranas is 13.819. Now, I'm not the first person who is coming up with this amazing correlation. In fact, in the 80s, if any of you were in the Western Hemisphere, there was a famous guy, his name was Carl Sagan, and he used to have this show where he will discuss, amazing scientific discoveries and stories. And he was always surprised, and he noted also in one of the his presentations, in one of his TV shows, that of all the philosophies in the world, the Vedic philosophy has a time scale which is closest to the modern scientific time scale. Of course, he didn't have numbers at that time, and both scientifically and from Sanskrit research, but he could see a rough correlation, and he was very he was pleasantly surprised by it. So that was my first data point, that the Puranas and modern science have zeroed in on the same date for the universe, for the beginning of the universe. That is 13.8018 or 13.819 billion years. Moving to data point number 2. So once we have figured out, hey, what's the beginning of the universe, the next question arises, when did our sun came into being? Now, before we can discuss this question, I want to discuss another point which our brother Praveen made. He made the point that as per the Hindu Puranas, and he quoted a verse also very beautifully, that God is actually this universe or this solar system. He quoted a verse saying how the different planetary systems in the Puranas, some of them are his navel, some of them are his chest, some of them are his face. Now, when I look outside, right now it's morning time in Michigan, USA, I see a beautiful sun. And when you see a beautiful sun, what are we reminded of? Well, I'm reminded of God's mercy. I'm reminded of God's beautiful eyes. When somebody wants to meditate on God, he takes every object around them as an instrument, as an indicator of God. So, the Puranas are not always written to present something in a very objective or very literal fashion. Sometimes they're written in a form where, in a mood of a lover. So we all have to accept, why are we here? Why are we practicing different religions? Christianity, Hinduism, Muslim. Our goal is to do what? What's our goal? Our goal is to love God. Our goal is to rekindle that sleeping, that dormant love for God, which is there within everybody's heart. So when you see from a perspective of a lover sees different realms of this solar system as a form of the Lord. And this is clearly stated in the Puranas a number of times, that this Virat form which we are hearing about, it's a form meant for somebody who has no conception of God as a person. He can only appreciate the world around us. So there are many people who don't want to accept that God has a personal form, but they're willing to accept that the universe is something superior to them, and they're willing to worship universe as something much bigger than us. So for them, that kind of presentation is given in the Puranas. It is in no way saying that the universe itself is the form of the God. That's only a presentation for those who don't want to accept a personal form of God. So, when we talk, when I'm going to talk here about the beginning of the solar system, or the birth of the solar system, Lord Brahma, who is a personality like an angel, he's in charge of the construction and destruction of his solar system. He has a very long lifetime, and when he wakes up from his sleep, he begins the construction of the solar system. He ignites it. So his lifetime is as long as a kalpa. I will discuss this case in more detail later also in the presentation. But when he wakes up after his kalpa, then he re-initiates the construction of the solar system. So as per the Puranas, the last time Brahma started the construction of the universe, it was 4.563 billion years ago. As per the scientists, very interestingly, until 1938, modern scientists didn't know how sun produced its energy. Thanks to Hans Bethe, who received a Nobel Prize for discovering the equations for the nuclear fission reactions inside the sun. Prior to him, people had a lot of different ideas about how sun creates energy. Some said maybe a coal, some said maybe some thermal form of energy. And there were so many speculations. It was Hans Bethe, who received a Nobel Prize later, that these are the equations for nuclear fission happening inside sun, which causes the burning or the glow of the sun day after day, and it will continue for next billions of years. Thanks to his research, now we have a model, and based on that model, and based on the collection of the oldest rocks from the solar system, we now have a date for the birth of the sun. Again, if you see the timeline of the dates given by the scientists, they have moved step by step, monotonically, towards the Puranic value, which is 4.563. And now their latest value, 2018, 2019, is 4.567. You're welcome to do a Google search and check these values out. I'm not quoting something from 20 or 30 years ago, something which is only a couple of years ago. And if they have changed, they may have changed by last decimal place, something like that. Interestingly, Puranas also give a very precise value for the destruction of the solar system. What's their value? They give a clear value of 5.347, and that also lies within the current understanding of modern scientific paradigm about the destruction of the solar system. Interestingly, the scientists or the astrophysicists don't have an exact value for the destruction of the solar system. But here comes the power of prediction. The Puranas are also giving a value which can be tested in the future and would act as further proof that these books, Puranas, are not somebody's speculation, but a product of somebody who had a one-to-one meeting with God, and he's just writing down what he heard from God. Because God is source of extraordinary knowledge, this is an evidence of that extraordinary knowledge. Of course, as my brother Praveen pointed earlier, the purpose of holy books is salvation, is reunion with Lord, not a science textbook. You won't find equations for gravity. You won't find equations for nuclear fission or fusion in these books. That's not the purpose of this book. God is not here to give us a textbook on astrophysics. The primary and the main purpose of any scripture, holy scripture, is emancipation, is rekindling of love of Godhead. That's the main goal. Next slide. Moving on to my third data point. You can see in the diagram there are these factories working very hard, producing a lot of metals and a lot of equipment. And then you can see these guys, they're working, digging out the earth. Who are these guys? These are paleontologists. What's their job? They have a job that to discover the history of the earth by going deeper and deeper into the earth's layers and collecting fossils, collecting earth samples, collecting rock samples and dating them and trying to rebuild the history of the earth based on empirical evidence. So over the last 200 years, the paleontologists have made numerous discoveries about the history of the world, such as the disappearance or extinction of the dinosaurs. Everybody knows about them. So many movies about them. Thankfully, they're not here. Otherwise, we won't be alive. Both of us, all of us, will be their food. So there was a time when they were roaming around very freely on this earth, but thanks to an extinction event, they got disappeared, or they were wiped out by Lord's mercy. So the disappearance of different species or large number of species happens quite prodigally in the history of the earth. Whenever there's a mass disappearance of species, it's called a mass extinction. Dinosaurs were part of a mass extinction which happened 65 million years ago. However, that was not the major or the most powerful mass extinction which our Earth has seen. Our Earth has seen 5 big mass extinctions, of which the biggest one is the end Permian mass extinction, which happened roughly 250 million years ago. Precisely 251.9 million years ago. In that mass extinction, 90% of the land species, 70% of the marine species disappeared over a very short period of time. The Puranas talk about mass extinctions too, or catastrophes. So they describe an event called as Matsya Avatar Pralaya. Matsya means fish, Avatar means incarnation, Pralaya means catastrophe or extinction event. The event which is described in the Puranas has details which are very similar to the details a portion of that is very similar to the details which are found in holy books like Bible or Quran or other ancient cultures like Native American culture. It's a story of the Great Flood. There is a king. He's overseeing his population, and he gets this indication from God that he should meditate. He goes into meditation, and he's sitting in meditation for years, and he senses, he has this feeling that something bad is going to happen to his kingdom. What does he do? He prays to God for direction. When he prays to God, he is visited by the Lord, and the Lord tells him that, "Oh my son, don't be fearful. I'm here for you. In few days from now," or actually he says, very soon, "you will see the destruction of this earth. And I want you to collect the sages, collect the best resources, and look for me." And very soon, the king notices a small fish. The king saves that fish and puts it in a aquarium in his house, because the fish speaks to him that, "Please save me." Very soon the fish is too big for the aquarium, and it wants almost want to break it. Then he moves the fish to a small pond, and very soon the fish is too big for the pond too, and he moves the fish from pond to a nearby river, and it's too big for the river, moves him to the ocean. And then he realizes that fish is a form of the Lord, which had told him that he will come. And the fish tells him that the destruction of the earth is very near. "Why don't you come with me?" At that very moment, the king is saved along with the sages and important resources by this fish, who takes him and protects him during this time of destruction and keeps him safe during that mass catastrophe. And then the Matsya Purana gives further details of different events happening at that time, but most importantly, it gives a date. Remember, it doesn't have tons of equations and other phenomena get described in so much detail as a paleontologist would like, but it gives a detail, an empirical data point, a numerical data point. And this is the biggest catastrophe as described in the Puranas, which has happened in last 5 billion years, as per the Vyasadeva. And that date for that event is given to be 251.152, which is only 0.3% away from the biggest mass extinction recorded in the history of the Earth, as by the paleontologist. So I see this evidence, this data, as a proof that the Great Flood story, which is heard across numerous ancient cultures, whether it be biblical or Quran or Native American or the Hindu, that story is not just a fable. Actually, it's an accurate description of what happened long ago. The Puranas stand a class apart in that regard, that they also give detail and further descriptions which are discussed in my Puranas about the event, which match pretty well with the modern scientific description of that mass extinction. So, this is my third data point. So, I discussed 3 data points today. The first one was the origin of the universe. The second one was origin of the sun. And the third one, mass extinction. These 3 data points came from 3 different fields. One was given by cosmologists. They used something known as cosmic microwave background radiation to discover that date. The second one was from the astrophysicists. They use calcium, aluminum particles to date the sun, along with the model of the sun which they have it. And third is the date coming from paleontologists, which use a number of dating techniques like radiocarbon dating and uranium PB dating, a number of uranium lead dating, and a number of other techniques to verify those dates. So what are we seeing here? We are seeing that the latest advancements in fields and in numerous scientific fields have come to accept the Puranic model for their chronology. Now, if you see my next slide, somebody may say that these dates may have been a product of guess. Now, what is the probability of guessing these dates? As we will notice, or any person will notice, my friend here has the copies of the Samhitas. They are full with numbers. In fact, in Ramayana, the numbers go as big as 10 to the raised to the power, 40 and 50s. So if the writer of the Vedas and Puranas or the Ramayanas were to just guess, they could have chosen any date. So for them to guess one date accurately is precisely 1 over the 10 raised to the power 50 or 60, as you want to take it. No, it goes up to 10 to the power 60 in the Ramayana. The probability of guessing these 3 dates goes to close to 180, 10 to the power 180. And that's just 3 dates. In my book, I discussed 10 more dates. In my recent research, which I've continued since then, my team has conducted, we are coming up with 20 more dates. So imagine a book which has 40 precise dates, and all these dates have been accepted by modern scientific paradigm to different amounts of scientific teams and different scientific models. What does it speak to? Just the 3 dates, the probability of those 3 dates to be correct is so huge, it is as big as, suppose I walk into a room, and in that room there are 12 people having a party, and I tell each person exactly their credit card number the first time I see them. A credit card has 16 digits. Is this possible? Mathematically, maybe, but realistically, not. So the explanation that this must have been a guesswork falls apart. Next slide. So then what are we left with? Well, let's summarize where do we stand. So we have 2 ways of gaining knowledge, the ascending way and the descending way. The ascending way is the modern science. The descending way is Puranas, Vedas, and other holy books, whether it be Bible or Quran. Now, I claim that these books, Puranas, Vedas, they are giving knowledge which is free from mistakes. They're also giving us testable predictions so that nobody else, a layman on the street or a rickshawala or somebody else cannot come with a book and say, hey, my book is a holy book, my book is a revelation from God. Because it needs to have testable prediction, and these testable predictions separate facts from fiction. There are two types of predictions, subjective and objective. There have been numerous subjective verifications, and that's why people are following religious books. And here I'm presenting objective verification. Now, since I'm making an extraordinary claim that there is a metaphysical personality who is God, and he has revealed these books, I'm also presenting an extraordinary amount of evidence to make my case. The data given in these books, in the Puranas and Vedas, was empirically inaccessible to people of that time. By any scholarly standard, Vedas and Puranas were written down at least 3,000 to 4,000 years ago. And the scholars also accept that there has been an oral tradition of these books going further back, for which they don't have a date. So what's the conclusion? The conclusion is that the Puranas are a genuine source of knowledge. They are as much scientific as any other science book you will find in any lab or any school or library. They are no less. They talk primarily about reunion with God, primarily about spiritual realization. They talk primarily about God's qualities and God's pastimes, Lord's birthplace, Lord's relatives, Lord's pastimes, Lord's activities. That's their prime subject matter. Next slide. And incidentally, they have some information, some quantitative information, which can be used by modern scientific paradigms or modern scientific labs. Like if you were to ask in cosmologists, do you have an independent way of verifying the date for the Big Bang? Or if you were to ask an astrophysicist, do you have an independent way of verifying the date for the origin of the sun? I'm afraid they would tell you they don't. But now they have the Puranas. The Puranas can provide them with an independent way of verifying the research. For the first time in the history of mankind, we have a book which is thousands of years old, but at the same time is able to provide information that can be used by modern scientific man to verify his claims. So here we are not claiming that there is no laws of nature. There is laws of nature, but there are also divine beings, and these divine beings are running those laws of nature. And finally, why do I make such a case? Because we have tried numerous scientific philosophies. We have tried this, eat today, enjoy today, and think about it. Just live for this life forever. This life, enjoy this, this day as the last day of your life, and enjoy it so much as possible. This philosophy of materialistic hedonism, and we have come to a place where our worlds are full of pollution, whether it be in our relationships or nature. This is not the way to live life. The Puranas and the Holy Scriptures give how a means or techniques on how to live a life centered around God. And that's what we are here to offer. That's what here I'm to offer. So I invite you all to study the Puranas and enjoy our relationship and relish that relationship which we have with the Lord, and shine in the glory of the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Siddharth. Thank you so much for a beautiful presentation. It was really very nice. I couldn't just stop listening to you. It was wonderful. I really hope you would have taken some more time actually to explain your calculations and references, but maybe you can do this in the next one.
I can do that in my second, when the rebuttal comes, I can go into detail with that.
That would be wonderful. So now now what has happened is now it is up to the Sakshi team to make their presentation. Okay, just for the records, Brother Siddharth has gone 7 minutes over, exactly 7 minutes, and I didn't feel like stopping him because he was really in the flow. So the Sakshi team.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
You're most welcome, my friend. So just in the spirit of fairness, I give that 7 minutes to the Sakshi team also, but I would also like to tell the Sakshi team that you cannot go in 1 second about 37 minutes. We have exactly 37 minutes that Siddharth got. All right, you get no flexibility. All right, before we get into the presentation by the Sakshi team, there will be a short break, and we meet on the other side of this small promo. Thank you. This is so interesting, and I'm so looking forward to hearing the Sakshi team. But before I go into that, brothers and sisters, I'd like to bring your mind to one small point that Siddharth made, which I really appreciate. Of all the things he said something really nice towards the beginning, which is, he spoke about, there was this in the, a few hundred years back where people were tortured by monarchs who had affiliation to Christianity, and he said in a very clear manner and very candid manner and a very honest manner that this doesn't mean that Christianity speaks about going against people or killing them who are not who are speaking against or who are against the faith or something like that. So that is something that most Christians also don't know. Atheists use it as a point, and Siddharth was so kind enough to mention a historical fact on that even though monarchs were affiliated with Christianity, whatever activities, the heinous evil activities that they did was not a reflection of Christianity. So Siddharth, I appreciate you for saying that, and I appreciate your honesty. All right, on to the Sakshi team. It's up to you to decide who gets how much, but your total remains 37. I'll flag you at 2 minutes, 1 minute, and on the dot you'll have to stop whether you finish or not. All right?
Sure.
37 minutes, you have to decide who speaks what. All right? So time slot divided across the two of you. Okay, your time starts now. Go ahead.
All glory to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I thank you for this opportunity, especially ISKCON for this invitation. In the introduction, we said that the Holy Bible is the paradigm giver of modern science. Modern science has two important components: a theory, in particular exact sciences such as physics and astronomy, have mathematical physical laws of nature, and two, observation and experimentation methodology. These unique axioms of modern science were derived from the metrics of biblical theology. Hence, the Holy Bible is the paradigm giver of modern science. In contrast, many of the pre-modern sciences had speculations, at best deductive science. Details of the speculation may have nothing to do with observation or experimentation. Puranic science is an example of pre-modern science. To fully appreciate this, let us begin by looking at some pre-modern models of cosmos and planets. Point number 1, Puranic deductive model of cosmos, Viraduruba structure, versus Jonas Kepler inductive model of elliptical orbit systems of planets. In Bhagavad Purana, Book 2, Chapter 6, Sloka 39 tells us that the cosmos is the Viraduruba manifestation of Puranic God. Considering cosmos as body of Puranic God has an internal logic in Purana. Again, Bhagavad Purana, Book 2, Chapter 5, Sloka 37 says, society itself is divided into Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas and Shudras from head, arms, thighs and legs respectively of Puranic God. If Sloka 37 says society is the body of Puranic God, then Sloka 38 to 42 says cosmos itself is the body of Puranic God and similarly hierarchically structured. Bhagavad Purana, Book 2, Chapter 5, Sloka 38 to 42 provides the hierarchical structure of the anatomy or the anatomy of Viraduruba. The Viraduruba body of the Puranic God can be classified either as 3 or 14 lokas. If 3, on the feet, Bhulogam, on the navel, Bhuvarloka, and on the head, Swarloka. Puranic earth is in the navel or Bhuvarloka, and the sun and the moon, please note this, are in the Swarloka. Siddharthji in his presentation seems to deny the Viraduruba structure of cosmos. I wonder why. Is it because that almost every detail provided of Viraduruba structure is an error? Let us raise this question. Question number 1. On the order, As per modern science, the order of the planets from Sun is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus and Neptune. However, in Bhagavad Purana, Book 5, Chapter 22, Slokas 8 to 16 provides the order as the Earth, then Sun, after Sun Moon, after Moon stars, and after stars are Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter and Saturn in that order. What justification you have for this absolutely erroneous order? Siddharthi, who seems to be uncomfortable in following Virat Rupa structure, might object and say that it should not be taken literally. Of course it should be taken literally. That would be clear in the next question. Question 2. Bhagavad Purana, Book 5, Chapter 22, Sloka 11 says, stars are located 2 lakh yojanas or 1.6 million miles above moon. Sloka 12 says, Venus is located another 1.6 million miles above stars. We know that moon and Venus are part of solar system. Stars are light years away from the solar system, with a light year being 9.5 trillion kilometer. How can then stars be closer to the moon than Venus? This does not make any sense as per the modern science, but makes perfect sense to the speculative Puranic science. How? In Shiva Purana, part 3, Koti Rudra Samhita, chapter 14, we read 27 Puranic constellations of the stars are daughters of Daksha and are married to moon. As husband and wives, of course moon and stars should be closer to each other. Moon can go to each of his wife's mansions on every day for 27 days, defining of course your astrological nakshatra as well. Question 3. Adaranya Siddharthi in his book Big Bang and the Sages, chapter 2, he proposes that the Brahmanda, instead of the entire solar universe, is solar system. If so, let him also explain how can the 27 constellations of stars be within the solar system. We must understand that without such interpretations, his book will utterly fail. Question 4. On the direction, Bhagavad Purana, Book 5, Chapter 22, Sloka 8 to 16 also provides the direction of these planets and stars. First is Earth, above it is Sun, and above it is Moon, and then of course stars. Over above it is the Venus, and above the Venus is Mercury, and above it is Mars, and then Jupiter and Saturn. As per the modern science, the universe is flat. How then can Venus be above the stars? If moon is above the sun, in fact, there were obvious problems with this Puranic science, which were understood with simple observation before even the invention of telescope. If moon is above the sun, then we will not have lunar eclipse, right? How did Puranic science resolve this conflict with the obvious observation? In Bhagavad Purana, Book 8, Chapter 9, we read about the Mohini Avadar and Asura Rahu. Most of us know this story. Puranic god took Avadar as a seductive woman and took immortal nectar from Asuras and gave it to Devas. The sun and the moon, as Puranic Devas, were sitting to drink the immortal nectar Amrit. One of the Asuras, Rahu, dressed as a Deva, sat and drank immortal nectar. Sun and moon immediately informed the Puranic god, who chopped off Rahu's head, creating Rahu and Ketu. However, since Rahu had already taken the immortal nectar, he definitely cannot die. Since then, Rahu, to take revenge, has been swallowing up sun and moon, causing solar and lunar eclipses. Siddharthi might want to answer us. Question 5 in Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 24, sloka 4 says lunar eclipse is caused by Rahu. Because of the heat of Sudarshana Chakra of Vishnu, Rahu runs away after a muhurta. Is lunar eclipse caused by earth obstructing the light from the sun, or is it caused by Asura Rahu? For argument's sake, even if we accept Puranic explanation that lunar eclipse is caused by Asura Rahu, how does one explain the waxing and waning of the moon? Without rejecting the Virat Rupa structure, Puranic science again resolves it by introducing another myth. In Brahmanda Purana, section 2, sloka 67 to 73, we are told that the nectar of the moon is drunk or eaten by ancestors and devas, and then replenished again. Some of the dead ancestors are now in moon as per Puranas, since moon, as I said at the beginning, is part of the Swarna Loka. If you buy an ordinary telescope and look at the moon, you will see that there is no edible nectar in the moon. Are some of the dead ancestors who are supposedly in the moon now starving? Forget modern science. Even ancient Greeks knew that this was all wrong. There was a great Greek philosopher, Anaxagoras, who lived in BC 500 to 480, around that time, who appeared to have given the correct reason for the eclipses. But let me give you Aristotle, since his book is accessible for all of you to cross-check what I am saying. In BC 300, Aristotle in his book On Heavens, book 2, part 14, Aristotle not only provided the correct explanation of eclipse, but also argued that as the shadow of the earth falling on the moon during the lunar eclipse is curved, the shape of the earth should be spherical. In BC 200, 100 years after Aristotle, Eratosthenes, using the spherical shape of the earth and the angular displacement of the sun, calculated the size of the earth to 99% accuracy. He calculated the circumference of earth as 40,000 kilometers compared to the modern calculation of 40,075 kilometers. Ancient Greek knowledge about the cause of eclipse and the size of the earth was transferred to India. Some Indian scholars then began to question the Puranic science. In the 6th century AD, about 700 years after Aristotle, lived Varahara Mihira, the Indian astrologer or astronomer. In his book Brihat Samhita, Adhyaya 2, slokas 14 and 15, he acknowledged the Greeks as the rishis of astronomy and astrology. Having gained such knowledge from Greeks, in Brihat Samhita Adhyaya 5, he rejects Rahu as an explanation for eclipses. Virat Rupa error structure led to the Rahu error, and then came another error. That we see it in Bhagavad Purana. That is another question. Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 21, slogan 19. We are told sun travels around the earth a circumference of 9.5 crore yojanas, or at least 6 billion kilometers. How can it be scientific when the actual circumference is only 40,075 kilometers? Lalla, the 11th century Indian astrologer, astronomer, in his book, the treatise which expands the intellect of students, Adhyaya 19, tried to reconcile some of the Puranic view with the then science. But in Adhyaya 20, that is chapter 20, he also gave up defending the Puranic view of the size and shape of the earth. He included it in the false knowledge. However, I read that Siddharji, Adaraniya Siddharji, the Puranic scholar, argues that many of such things could be considered as hyperdimensional. In fact, in his book The Big Bang and the Sages, chapter 2, Adaraniya Siddharji says a precondition for his book is to understand the Puranic ontology in hyperdimensional space. Let us examine it very briefly. Siddharji uses the example of flatland. The illustration is taken from the mathematical fiction called Flatland by the Anglican priest Reverend Edwin A. Abbott in AD 1884. Siddharji never acknowledges this, but that is fine for us. Let us check. Dimensions. Line is one dimensional. It has only length. You can move front or back. A square is two dimensional. It has length and breadth. Now you can move north and south, east and west. But you cannot move up and down. For that you need height. A cube is three dimensional. It has length, breadth and height. You can move up and down, east and west, north and south. That is the three-dimensional space we live in. Time is considered as the fourth dimension. We will stick to 3 for now. If you have to describe a three-dimensional space, how will you describe it? For that you turn to Akti Purana, chapter 108, and it speaks about the Puranic earth. Sloka 3 and 4 describes about up and down. Sloka 8 and 9 describes about north and south. Sloka 12 to 14 describes about east and west. This is clearly a description of three-dimensional space. It is within the coordinates of length, breadth and height. Extra space or extra distance is not extra dimension or hyperdimension, Adaraniya Siddharthi. Moreover, in science, 4 fundamental forces of nature, gravity, weak force, electromagnetism and the strong force, are already working perfectly in the 3 coordinates of space, that is length, breadth and height and time. However, scientists are looking if there is a unified force which explains all the forces together. It is where the scientists are looking for extra dimension. They are not adding extra distance to the current circumstances of earth or anything. In fact, they call it compactification. Extra dimension is compactified or curved and wrapped into the current dimension. If not, the current scientific laws will go for a toss. If the earth's circumference is 6 billion kilometers in any dimension, which is almost 16,000 times bigger than the actual size, gravity would make us collide with other planets and attracted asteroids, and life would not be even possible on the earth. Hyperdimension concept will not rescue the plunder of Purana. Remember, without this precondition, Siddharthaji's book will fail miserably. That brings us to the next question. Question 7 in Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 16, sloka 2, we are told Maharaja Priyavatra's chariot created the 7 ditches, which is how the entire Puranic earth is divided into 7 continents. Do we divide hyperdimensions by chariot wheels? Again, another question which it raises. Question 8 in Akti Purana, Adhyaya 108, sloka 2, it says we are given about the 7 oceans of these 7 continents. Salt, which is of course the earth that we are living in, salt ocean. And then there is a sugarcane juice ocean. Then there is a nectar ocean. And then there is a clarified butter ocean and milk ocean. Is sugar ocean, clarified butter ocean, curd ocean all part of hyperdimensions? Why don't our Hindu friends reject such Puranic descriptions completely? There is absolutely no science in Puranas. Why? It is because many of the Hindu core beliefs are connected to the Puranic model of universe. Let us see one. That brings us to the next question. In question number 9, in Bhagavad Purana, book 3, chapter 32, sloka 2 to 3 says, moon is part of the Swarloka and only those who worship ancestors and devas can reach moon after their death due to their pious karmas. But on 20th July 1969, Neil Armstrong along with the Presbyterian church elder Edwin Aldrin landed on the Puranic Swarloka moon without worshipping any ancestors. Church elder Edwin Aldrin read from the Holy Bible and took Holy Communion on the moon. What happened to the karma theory? On April 1, 1972, in room conversation at Sydney, Adaraniya Srila Prabhupada, after quoting Bhagavad Gita 9:25, said if moon landing is true, then Krishna consciousness has become bogus. You see the gravity of the situation. Srila Prabhupada further elaborated this Puranic conflict with the modern science. As per Bhagavad Purana, Canto 5, chapter 22, sloka 8, moon is 1 lakh yojanas or 8 lakh miles above the sun. Since in the Puranic order sun is above the earth and moon above the sun, the distance from the moon to the earth to the moon is definitely more than 8 lakh miles. Srila Prabhupada in his purport to this sloga pointed out this conflict with the modern science. Thus we understand why the modern science did not originate in India. But why did it emerge in the West? Because West rejected the ancient Greek and Roman religious beliefs and accepted Christianity to make that progress. Like the ancient and medieval Puranas, ancient Greeks also had discriminatory order of the society and cosmos. Let me focus on the idea of cosmos. Aristotle in his book On the Heavens, book 1, part 3, said our planet Earth being made of earth, fire, air and water, 4 elements, the celestial body is made of the 5th element called ether. We have the word quintessence from this belief. And also ancient Greeks, celestial bodies made of ether were also incorruptible. Further, as per Greek thinkers, as these celestial bodies are incorruptible, they should move, only have a simple motion. Aristotle himself on Heavens, book 1, part 3, that said that these simple motions must be either a straight line or circle. Straight line is for moving away from the center and circle is for moving towards the center. As per the ancient Greek thinkers, since the planets ought to move to the center, they always drew the planetary orbits as circles only. But they also observed that the planets doesn't follow circular orbits. So what did they do? Just like how our pre-modern Hindus did not reject Virat Rupa structure when confronted with obvious errors, but created new myths to explain those. Ancient Greeks also did not change their belief. In fact, ancient Greek mathematician Ptolemy in his book Almagest, book 5, he drew smaller circles on the periphery of the orbit circles to solve the observed disparity. This is called epicycles. In fact, in the same book, Ptolemy goes on to provide a detailed table of the motions of the planets. It required the Holy Bible to intervene. The entire biblical theological matrix was in action to dismantle the old Greek system of cosmos. Let us look at some important thoughts. Omnipotence of God, moving from deductive method to inductive method. In AD 1277, Bishop Tembiar of Paris, after investigating the Aristotelian science, issued condemnation of 219 propositions of Aristotelian science. This is discussed in detail in the book The Foundations of Modern Science in the Middle Ages by eminent historian Edward Grant. Article 49, for example, condemned the Aristotelian science which said that the God could not move the heavens. Why this objection from the Bishop of Paris? Because the Holy Bible says in Genesis 1:1 and Romans 4:17, God created the universe, including time and space, out of nothing. Holy God of Holy Bible is omnipotent and has absolute authority over creation. He could create linear motions, circular motions, or elliptical motions, or any other type of motions for planets. It is for us to observe. Like how Adam observed the animals and named, it is for us to observe and understand. Biblical concept of sovereignty of God liberated the human mind from the clutches of Virat Rupa and Greek divine circles. Second, dismantling the hierarchical structure of the cosmos. Historian Larry Sitnop, in his book, that is a recent book, Inventing the Individual, pointed out that Christianity not only dismantled the discriminatory social structure, but also dismantled the discriminatory cosmic structure, which is something to which both the Hindus and the ancient Greeks believed. Further, as historian Sir Herbert Butterfield, former Vice Chancellor of Cambridge University, points out in his book The Origins of Modern Science, chapter 4, The Downfall of Aristotle and Ptolemy, Bible verses such as Psalms 102:26, Hebrews 1:11, which says that the heavens will grow old and perish, is in direct conflict to the Aristotelian science. Now, if moon is not the Sorlaloga and neither made of either, it is possible then to go to moon itself. That opened the possibility of landing the moon without violating any theological concepts of the Bible. Further, perfection in God's work. We are told in Deuteronomy 32:4, all the works of God are perfect. And Psalms 8:3, heavens are the works of God. The implication is that universe has to express the precision of God. This understanding is beautifully depicted in the 13th century drawing of the moralized Bible, God as the architect, God creating cosmos with a compass. Father Nicholas Copernicus, in his book on the revolutions of heavenly spheres, said when he saw Ptolemy's complicated astronomical system, he was annoyed. It doesn't fit with the perfection of the God of the Bible. Hence, Father Copernicus proposed heliocentric system. Then came the missionary-minded Johannes Kepler. There was 8-minute observable difference in the movement of Mars from the pre-modern system of Ptolemy and 3-minute difference from Tycho Brahe. This was not acceptable to Kepler. Kepler's God would create the world in perfection. Kepler was not bound by the divine Greek circles. Kepler's God could create cosmos in any way he wanted. Hence, in his book, Astronomia Nova or New Astronomy, Kepler totally discarded the circular orbits and gave us the elliptical orbits as well as the Kepler's law of planetary motions. Kepler had a mission agenda behind these discoveries. In the harmonies of the world, Kepler said that he is doing it for the glory of God and to save souls. In other words, to transform the mind and the soul of the people as per the biblical worldview. How? With a stroke of a pen, Kepler not only tore through all the fictitious epicycles of Ptolemy, but also dismantled equally the fictitious Virat Rupa structure of the Puranic cosmos, so much so that today Siddhartha is not ready to accept what is clearly taught in the Puranas. But we have a problem. If the earth and the planets etc. are non-being objects as taught by the Holy Bible in Genesis 2:7 and Genesis 3:8, how do they move? To understand this, let us look further. In point 2, this is the section 2 of the presentation, Puranic explanation for the movement of planets versus the biblical commentator Sir Isaac Newton's explanation. If sun, moon and planets are living beings as Puranas speculate, they must be moving on their own or using some vehicles. Let us look at the evidence. In Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 21, we read that the sun is riding on a chariot pulled by 7 horses. You can read the slokas 12, 13 and 15. In Brahmanda Purana, section 2, chapter 23, we have descriptions for chariots of moon and other planets as well. If sun, moon, etc. have chariots and horses to move, why search for physical laws? Interestingly, there is no chariot for the earth, which raises an important question. Question 10, why there is no chariot for the earth? If there is, please provide reference. Or is it because in the Puranic cosmology, earth is supposed to be stationary? Let us explore further. In Bhagavad Purana, Canto 5, chapter 25, sloka 13, Canto 10, that is the book 10, chapter 68, sloka 46, the Bhumandala, the Puranic earth, rests on a 1,000-hood serpent, Ananda. I must add that it is not merely the Puranic earth, but the stability of the entire Brahmanda is due to Ananda, serpent Ananda. But it raises another equally important question. Question 11. In solar system, sun is not merely the geographical center, but at the center of action, providing stability of planets in their orbits. If serpent Ananda is the cause of the stability of planets, shouldn't we call the system as serpent system rather than solar system? The main point is, if sun, moon, planets are living beings, why would anyone look for a mathematical physical law to explain their movement? They will not. That is why ancient Greeks or ancient Chinese or Hindus never discovered a single mathematical physical law of nature before the modern science. Ancient Greeks, like the Hindus too, believed that nature has a body with its own mind, says historian R.G. Collingwood in his book, The Idea of Nature, Introduction Greek Philosophy. It required the Holy Bible to intervene to provide a different paradigm, a different thinking cap. In Genesis 1:1, and Romans 4:17, we read that the God created the universe, including the time and space, out of the nothing. This universe which created out of nothing is impersonal and separate from personal God. The impersonal universe has no willpower on its own. It is God who imposes his law as per his wish on the nature. In Jeremiah 33:25, we read, I have established the fixed laws concerning governing the heaven and the earth. That is why Sir Herbert Butterfield, in his book The Origins of Modern Science, said, the most sensational steps towards the scientific revolution in astronomy took place before the discovery of telescope. Scientific revolution in astronomy began not when men looked the skies through telescope, but when men looked the skies through the biblical lens. Father Jean Buridian, who lived in AD 1301 to 1362, proposed the theory of impetus, a physical theory for the movement of planets. This is cited by several historians such as Herbert Field, Marshall Clagett in the Science of Mechanics in the Middle Ages, as the predecessor of Newton's first law. Bible commentator Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was not only one of the most brilliant people ever lived on the face of the earth, but he was also a serious student of the Bible who wrote Bible commentaries. He wrote more on Bible than on science. And he who discovered the gravitational laws in his magisterial book Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy explicitly rejected similar views to that of Puranas and subscribed to the biblical view. You can be very clear about this in the author's preface of that book, where he rejects substantial forms and occult qualities of nature. If that statement is not clear, he further goes to the conclusion and he rejects, saying that the universe is not a living organism or a body of God like Virat Dhruva. Virat Dhruva, he doesn't use that word, but he says it is not the body of God. And further Newton says the God of Israel, the God of the Bible, he is the one who created it. That led to the discovery or search for the laws. Similarly, Christian apologist and scientist Robert Boyle, who discovered the laws of motion, in his book The Christian Virtuoso, said the laws of motion depended on the will of God and not on the matter's own mind. This is a complete rejection of the ancient Greek understanding of nature and pre-modern understanding, Hindu understanding of nature. Question 12, in Bhagavad Purana, book 2, chapter 5, we read the world as the body of Puranic God. Newton and Boyle rejected it. And this rejection and the acceptance of Bible led to the discovery or the concept of laws of nature, as Peter Harrison, the Oxford historian, noted. How can then we consider Puranas as the as scientific? Puranas are actually the antithesis of the methodology or of modern science, and the Bible is the paradigm giver or the mother of modern science. Let me quickly conclude, since Naren will not give me further time. Holy Bible promotes observation and experimentation. Puranas create obstacle for experimentation by attributing divinity to nature. In our introduction, we cited Genesis 2:9 and said how God expected Adam to learn by observation. Peter Harrison, Oxford historian, in his book The Fall of Man and the Foundations of Modern Science, examined this question very deeply. Why did people start experimenting? And one of the major reasons he found was their theological understanding of Genesis 3. Genesis 3 teaches that Adam sinned and lost his original capacity, or this is how they interpreted. Francis Bacon, a key person in the development of scientific method, said in his book Novum Organ, since in Adam we lost our capacity, observation alone is not sufficient. We need experimentation. Micrographia of Robert Hooke, probably the first ever scientific bestseller in the world, said experimental science is there, should be there to remedy the capacity we lost due to sin. Irrespective of whether Siddhartha agrees or not, these are the conclusions of historians of science. In contrast, Puranic teaching is a great obstacle to the scientific methodology. Bhagavad Purana, book 7, chapter 9, sloka 30, we read, whatever exists in the Puranics is Puranic supreme God alone. And in Bhagavad Purana, Book 11, chapter 2, sloka 41, we read, devotees should venerate the nature because the nature itself is Krishna, his manifestation. Robert Boyle, who wrote the book A Free Inquiry into the Vulgarly Received Notions of Nature, in this book, Robert Boyle, he said, veneration of nature, that is teaching similar to Purana, is a great impediment to experimental science. If ISKCON director Siddharthi does not agree with the Robert Boyle, I show the Robert Boyle's questions. Let Adaraniya Siddharthi answer it with evidence. Question 13, Robert Boyle's question. If nature is considered as divine, can human beings ever comprehend it? Question 14, if nature is considered as divine and ought to be venerated, will it not be impious to do experiments with the nature? Question 15, if nature is considered as the Virat Rupa of Krishna, should human beings ever attempt to change or control or make any modifications or do anything to the nature? Thus we see that the Puranas are not merely unscientific but are an obstacle to the two defining features of modern science, a mathematical, physical laws of nature and observation and experimental methodology. The Holy Bible provides foundation for both. The Holy Bible is the mother of the modern science. Puranas are the antithesis of the modern science. Before I sum up, before I conclude, to make it very easy for Siddharthi, let me revise the questions that I have raised.
2 minutes.
Thank you. Question 1, in Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 22, sloka 8 to 16, provides the order of the earth, provides the order as earth, then sun, the moon, after moon, the stars, and above and after stars are Venus, Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, in that order. What justification do you have for this absolutely erroneous order? Question 2, Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 22, sloka 11 says, stars are located 1.6 million miles above moon. Sloka 12, Venus is located another 1.6 million miles above stars. How can then stars be closer to moon than Venus? Question 3, Bhagavad Purana, Canto 2, says first is earth, above it is sun, above the sun is moon, and of course above it is stars, and above it is Mercury, and above it is Jupiter, and so on. Modern science says universe is flat. How can then Puranas be correct? And as we said, another question is on the lunar eclipse. Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 24, sloka 4 says lunar eclipse is caused by Rahu. Because of the heat of the Sudarshana Chakra of Vishnu, Rahu runs away after a muhurta. Is lunar eclipse caused by obstructing the light from the sun, or is it caused by Asura Rahu? And if the 7 continents and the 7 oceans of the Puranic earth is hyperdimensional, please explain if the clarified butter ocean and the other oceans that are described, are they also hyperdimensional? And how can the hyperdimensional space be created by the chariots of a Raja? Further, we are told, Bhagavad Purana, book 5, chapter 21, sloka 19, that sun travels. Thank you.
Sorry, Jerry. All right, that was a very fiery. I'm sorry, 37 minutes is the end of it. I'm sorry, my friend. And so that is a very fiery and very in-depth quotes and references and stuff. So I hope my audience enjoyed it as much as I did, if not more. It is so at this time I really hope that you would go out and send this link to others. I'm sure that you would want even them to enjoy it more and more. Now we are getting into the heart of it, into more in-depth discussion, because now is the rebuttal round, but we have only one rebuttal. And they'll be starting off with the ISKCON panel with Brother Siddharth. He'll have 10 minutes to respond to the presentation made by Jerry. After that, Jerry will have 10 minutes.
Both of us.
It's your choice, yeah, how you want to use it. So between them, the Sakshi panel will use 10 minutes to respond to the presentation which is done by Brother Siddharth. All right. So, Brother Siddharth, can you move on into the first rebuttal?
Thank you. So thank you, Brother Jerry, and thank you, Brother Praveen and Narain. I look forward to hearing from you more. So I appreciate that my dear friend, Brother Jerry here, went deep into the Bhagavad Purana, which is actually a subject which I have been studying for the last 10 years. And as I study every day, I find newer realizations, newer experiences. So I really appreciate that my brother Jerry went deep into studying the 3rd canto, the 5th canto, the 8th canto of the Bhagavatam, and presented us with various beautiful verses and posed us very interesting and very intelligent questions. However, before I begin discussing about the issues, now there are 2 ways of approaching something when we come to information which we can't understand. There are 2 ways of going forward. One is that we inquire, and other is we criticize. Here I would like to share a simple thing. I would like to share here the story from the Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, one time the great archery teacher Dronacharya asked his students to do a task. He gave a task to Yudhishthira and Duryodhana. The task gave to Duryodhana was go out in the world and find somebody who has no faults. Who has no faults, go and find somebody. So Duryodhana went out on his way. Then he also asked Yudhishthira, who was the head of the Pandavas, that you also go ahead and find somebody who has find somebody who has no good quality. Quite the opposite task. So Duryodhana was asked to find somebody who has no faults, whereas Yudhishthira was asked to find somebody who has no good qualities. They both came back empty-handed. Duryodhana said, I looked everywhere and I couldn't find anybody who had no fault. I could find everybody had some fault. Whereas Yudhishthira, he went around and he came back and he said, I went around and I found out that everybody was better than me, and everybody had wonderful qualities. I could not find no fault in them. Similarly, if you see a fly or a honeybee, a bee looks for honey, nectar, whereas a fly looks for trash. Now we could be looking at a holy book and just looking for a reason to criticize it, or we could be looking in the holy book for something to go deep in our love for God. When you were reading that book, Bhagavad Purana or the Puranas, what were you looking for? Were you looking for points to criticize or points to inquire? I'm sorry to say, in these questions, I don't see a sincere sense of humility or a sincere sense of inquiry. I just see a sense of finding faults with the scripture, which I take problem with. You gave the beautiful example of the book Flatlander, which is apparently written by a reverend. Great, I appreciate the mercy of Christ on him. However, you fail to understand the point he's making in the book Flatlander. When you see a line is only one dimension. When you see a paper has 2 dimensions, length and breadth. When you see a 3-dimension, it is also a height. What does that mean? It means that suppose if you're in a flat land and you see a sphere go through the flat land, you would only observe a circle which becomes mystically smaller and bigger. You won't be able to see there's a sphere which is passing through it. The idea being, when you are in a 2-dimensional world, you cannot explain or provide an explanation for a 3-dimensional world. So when we talk of higher dimensions, since we as humans are limited to 3 dimensions, if there is an object passing through this world which is of higher dimensions, we may not be able to appreciate it. Like we say, I'm sure this is also something which is said in Christianity and other religions too, that God is in the heaven, but God is also near to us, very close to us. How is it physically possible? Because God doesn't reside in 3 dimensions. He's transdimensional. He's higher dimension in that sense. So this is the proper understanding of higher dimensions. Higher dimensions means that you may be observing a 3-dimensional world. The book may be talking about a 3-dimensional world, but because if it is talking of other dimensions, the dimensions in which you live, you may not be able to understand it. This is the understanding which Flatlander book was giving, that when we talk of higher dimensions, our current understanding of 3 dimensions may not be able to provide an understanding of it, may not be able to understand it. So in all the examples you gave regarding the distances of the planets and moons, the distances of the order of them, again, let's go back to the data which I shared. For last hundreds of years, for last 200 years, the dates for the origin of the sun, the dates for the origin of the cosmos, the dates for the mass extinctions, they were far, far off from the Puranic understanding. But in 2018, in 2020, in 2021, very recently, they have come very close to the Puranic understanding. Similarly, in modern science, since 1900s, and also Jerry pointed out, the modern physicists are very generously using models of higher dimensions in numerous fields, specifically in the field of discovering a unified theory. And for many of the electromagnetic models, you need to have 9 dimensions, 11 dimensions to understand it. Now, whether somebody can live there or not, it's something which needs to be investigated. But presently, we don't have empirical means to investigate it. Like my friend Jerry also pointed out, given evidence from the from some astronomers, some article he quoted where he showed how the dimensions may be compacted, and the dimensions may be rolled inside it. The point being made is that that if you see outside, and outside what we just see is sun, moon, and the stars, we may be able to access it by going through the spaceship. But still, in those 3 dimensions, there may be pockets which may lead us to worlds which are higher dimensional inside them. That's the whole idea of being a dimension being compacted. So if we ask any modern physicist, what do you mean by a compacted dimension? They will explain to you that in the same space in which we live, there could be ways, there could be worlds embedded inside them which we have no access to. So my friend, for the first time, the modern physicists or the modern scientists are accepting this, that this world around us is practically magical, it's mystical. There are so many theories out there which talk about traveling to the black holes and being able to travel to further parts of the universe which are not accessible by spaceships. So modern physics is not open to the idea that the world around us could be higher dimensional. In fact, most of the modern theories, D theory, M theory, are all higher dimensional. So, so my point number 1, that the modern science is accepting higher dimensions as the necessity for explaining the uniform laws of nature. Point number 2, the Puranas have given a lot of data, some of which science has come to accept after 200 long years. Point number 3, many of these statements which are stated in the Puranas may seem at first glance as opposed to the current paradigms, but as we can see from the history of the science, they have come closer and closer to the Puranic understanding of chronology. There is a good chance that they will also come in that regard closer to Puranic understanding of the universe. Now, my brother also made this point regularly through a number of his questions, that giving a personality to the nature. How can universe be a person? How can sun be a person? How can earth be a person? How can sun be riding on a chariot? How can it being a person and still being not able to follow law? Let me give you an example. Suppose I'll give you an example of baking a cake. Now, when you're baking a cake, what do? You get some ingredients in a bowl. You put some flour, you put some baking powder, some butter, and you mix into a dough and put it in the oven. And you set it to a temperature. After some time, the cake comes out. Now, in baking a cake, the laws of nature work perfectly in putting all those ingredients together and producing a cake. Now, somebody may look at this whole process and say, hey, there was this reaction, that reaction, this reaction, that reaction. That's wonderful. But we're forgetting one key ingredient, and that's a person who mixed the ingredients, who put it in and turned the oven on and turn it off and take it out. So when we're talking about personality, a personality can still be there and the laws can still be there. They don't have to be separate. So when we're talking of sun being a personality and at the same time being a planet, are both things possible? Why not? What limits us from saying that sun is a person who is directing this movement of the sun which we see? And as I said earlier, if you take any holy book, they have a number of statements which cannot be empirically evaluated, such as the heavens and the earth. Just because the Puranas give a lot of details about the heavens, whereas the Bible or the Quran doesn't give the details about the heavens and the earth, doesn't mean that the Puranas are meant to be evaluated, every statement, from an empirical point of view. Just see the dates and the data which I have presented, and that show that the Puranic statements, after centuries of scientific exploration, can come close to the Puranic explanation, the Puranic statements. So when science has finally come to accept the Puranic date for the origin of the sun, origin of the universe, and the date for the mass extinctions, what is to be said that in future they may also have a better understanding which may coincide with the Puranic universe too. So with this, I rest my case.
Thank you again, Siddharth. That was a great response. And okay, there is just like maybe 50 seconds over, but that's fine. And so now it is over to the Christian team, Sakshi team, to respond. Please be precise, please be to the scope of the points made by Siddharth and the original presentation. You cannot be going beyond that. If you do, it's my job to cut in, which I will. So again, guys, for the viewers, I'm saying, I'm going to the chat messages. A lot of messages are there. Please do not get harsh on anyone. This is a very amicable discussion. As you can see, this is not meant for stirring up any sort of community hatred or showing anyone down. So please, even if you're watching a recording, please bear in mind that it's an academic discussion. And feel free to please pass on this link to whomsoever you might wish so that they can join in. Do drop in your questions in the chat box. All right, over to the Christian team. You have exactly 10 minutes and 40 seconds. You are live.
Yeah, thank you very much, Siddharth, for that cordial rebuttal. At the same time, reminding us about humility in searching the science. And thank you very much. And you gave a beautiful story from Mahabharata. And let me also come up with this. Let you respond to you from the story. It says something like this: Eka ekam yojanam putra vistaram abhigacchata yavat turaga sandarsha tavat khanata medinam tameva haya hartaram margamana mama agnya. It simply says you go and dig the earth deeper and deeper until to a 1 square yojana of the earth. By my order you will dig up the earth until you find a horse in your search of the thief of that horse. So we are very humbly actually approaching the geology of the Puranas, the geology of the Vedas, and the geology of the basic Hindu scriptures, and humbly, asking eminent scholars like you to explain us and not, school us on humbleness. Thank you very much for doing that. So, but when Jerry asked, "Aste patalamalastha sheshaha kshiti mandalam," simply means the Kshiti Mandala is on the head of a Sheshaha. What wrong is he asking? He's simply asking you the facts, and what we are expecting you is a response in terms of facts. So I hope we are trying to be very humble here and come and appeal to our eminent opponent that the data that you have presented or definitely is something a data scientist does. At the same time, science, as we remember the title for today, Holy Bible and Puranas, which are more scientific. So we are asking questions from the science. I hope you are not doing anything wrong here. Yatra yatra patan marge retastasya mahatmanah tani raupyasya hemnascha kshetranyasan mahipate. Simply, wherever his semen fell down, there were the gold and the silver khanijas that you can find on the earth. So we are simply questioning how the semen of God, how the virya of Shiva can become gold and can become the silver. So is it we want to put it more humbly in front of you, and we would want to learn from you. It is not about criticizing. It is about learning science, because the Puranas claim to teach the science, right? So, so I hope you know, we are on the same page here. We really want to learn from you. We really want to understand. There is so much material right here, so much material to question. But this is all in terms of inquisitiveness and learning from you. I hope you get my point. Over to Jerry.
Thank you, Siddharth, for that wonderful cordial rebuttal. You have very specifically emphasized on the 3 points, data points that you have covered. While I have differences over the hyperdimension still, because I feel you have repeated your claim without answering me, I will first look at the 3 data points that you have mentioned. You have mentioned about the age of the Puranic or age of the universe as per the Puranic calculation. Now, in Brahmanda Purana, section 2, Adhyaya 29, we have the cycles of the yugas, and very well know each of the yugas, and it totals up to, I think, 4 million for the 4 yugas together. And as you very well know, in Bhagavad Gita 8:17, chapter 8 verse 17, it says that one day of Brahma lasts 1,000 cycles of 4 ages, that is a Mahayuga, and his night also extends to the same span of time. So when 1 day plus 1 night, you get the total amount, the number, which very well you know that because of the time I am not going, anybody can calculate it. Now that 1 day and 1 night, you multiply it to 360 to get 1 year, and such 100 years Brahma lives. So that totals to 311.04 trillion years. Now we are told in Bhagavad Purana, book 3, chapter 11, sloka 34, that already the Brahma has lived half of his age. That is 311 divided by 2, 155.52 trillion years. So 155.52 trillion years should be the actual age of the universe as per the Puranas. How come it is 13.8 billion? There comes Siddharth's, I would say, unique contribution of taking the rat out of the hat. Says Siddharth says in his book, a unique contribution of the book is the discovery that there was an elemental disintegration and reconstruction at the end of the first paragraph. So that is Siddharth's book. But when we read the Bhagavad Purana itself, we don't see that this thing. There are 2 problems, major problems. I don't have time to expand everything, but at least let me show one Puranic problem and one scientific problem. Sri Chaitanya Charitam Mrida, by the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said every universe has a separate Brahma and a separate Shiva. If the entire universe has been completely disintegrated after the 50 years, 155 million years, trillion years, then the Brahma should be presiding over 2 universes. That is a Puranic problem. Because every Brahma should be presiding over only 1 universe, but as per your interpretation, this Brahma must have presided over 2 universes. Now the second problem, scientific problem, is Brahma himself is subject to time. If Brahma is subject to time, time is intrinsically woven to the matter. That you know very well, because you have quoted a general relativity theory, and in Stephen Hawking's Space and Time Wraps, he has very clearly explained. So if Brahma is within the time, there cannot be, the matter cannot be completely disintegrated and matter cannot completely disappear, then Brahma himself will go, because Brahma's time will stop. Matter and time are intrinsically woven together. There is no way of Brahma surviving when the matter is gone. So that is a scientific problem with your problem number 1. And then you spoke about the second data point, that is the age of the solar system. Age of the solar system, and let me say, at the end of the day, of Brahma's day, you say that there is a disintegration, and you quoted Vayu Purana in your book, Vayu Purana, the 238, 135, you went up to 140. But when I read Vayu Purana, same Vayu Purana, volume 2, book 38, slokas 177 to 174, when it speaks about the disintegration, it says that the entire earth with its continents and mountains is covered with water. So where is the disintegration of the matter? There is no disintegration of the matter. Had you read further the Vayu Purana, you would not have been made that unique novel discovery in the Purana. The traditional scholars were right, and I feel you are wrong, completely wrong in this. And then the solar system, you say Brahmanda is interpreted as the solar system. Sir, with all due respect, sir, solar system cannot have 27 constellations of stars. They are outside the solar system. If Brahmanda is the solar system, how can the stars be part of that solar system, sir? So your solar system, that calculation also goes wrong from the very viewpoint of the Puranas. Further, sir, if Brahma's age actually gets destroyed, or let me come to the third point and come back to it because of the time constraint. You also mentioned about the mass extinction, sir. When you spoke about the mass extinction, you spoke about the Malsya Avadar. Sir, I went to Bhagavad Purana, book 8, chapter 24, and sloka 5 says, this entire Malsya Avadar was for the sake of protecting the Brahmins, cows, and so on. Sir, how can 251 million years ago cows, boats and Brahmins exist? It is clearly in error, sir. Sir, don't bring again the hyperdimension here. I will not accept. In fact, nobody can accept that cows, boats and Brahmins 251 million years ago would have existed on a hyperdimensional plane. Adharaniya Siddharji, with all due respect and with all humbleness, I am saying that don't bring science from the Puranas. There is no science in the Puranas, absolutely nothing. You interpret Puranas in your own way, but there is absolutely no science in the modern science in the Puranas. Now, when it comes to the Brahma's night, when it comes to the universe, you said that with the Brahma going to sleep, the solar system will go into the disintegration. Sir, there are other stars other than Sun. Methuselah, for example, the oldest star, it came into existence almost after the Big Bang. That is already about 13 billion years. Didn't the Brahma over there go to sleep? If the solar system, with only the Brahma here goes to sleep. If the solar system, you are taking the time for this many 4.5 billion years or so, what happened to the other star and the other Methuselah is there not a Brahma in the Methuselah? So your interpretations, while they are novel, while nobody would have done that, they are plagued with the scientific and Puranic problems. Hence, we are unable to accept it, but we will be keen to hear from you in the future also how you will resolve all these things, sir.
Thank you. Just in the nick of time, thank you, Jerry, for your response to the rebuttal by Brother Siddharth. So that brings the end of the rebuttal series. Brother Siddharth, just as actually there are so many questions even in my mind, and I'm watching the chat screens. I don't know if I can request, I don't know whether I can even ask you, because the ISKCON panel has already requested just one rebuttal from the earlier agreed upon 4. If you want, we can do one more rebuttal. It's your choice. If you think no, we can move to conclusion as what you mentioned.
The crossfire.
Yeah, the crossfire, sorry. The crossfire and then the conclusion, yes, sorry. So, would you like to have on the rebuttal series to respond to Jerry, or would you like to move into the crossfire? What would you like to do? It's your choice.
Siddharthi, you are not audible.
I think you're muted.
We can't hear you. You are muted, sorry.
I think I would like to go with the previous agreed upon system.
Sure, crossfire.
Directly into the crossfire, you mean? Alright, super. So, okay, welcome to this interesting crossfire. This is so interesting. So, both the sides get to ask questions, 10 minutes each. Each side gets to ask a question of just 60 seconds. The question has to be limited within 60 seconds, so don't get into details or theology or whatever be the case. Get to the point, finish your questions in 60 seconds only, then the other side gets to answer it in 2 minutes. That's it. So 3 questions this side, starting off with the ISKCON panel and then the Christian panel. So we'll start off with the ISKCON panel as usual. So Brother Siddharth, can we move into your first question, and as soon as you say yes, your 60 seconds will start.
Okay, so my first question is, how does my esteemed panelist here, Brother Jerry and Brother Praveen, how do they explain that in the Genesis it is mentioned that Eve was created from Adam's rib? It's also mentioned that entire population of earth fit into Noah's ark and then replenish itself from just a handful member of each species. How can you explain that?
Alright, that's a great question, and we'll start off now. You got 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes to answer.
Yeah. When it comes to the Noah's flood, let me give you the recent scientific, if you are asking about the species, let us say that all the land species with the dimensions definitely can be fit, but also let us look at the recent the scientific journals. For example, the evidence from the extraterrestrial impact about 12,900 years, which came out in 2007. Similarly, the 2012 extraterrestrial impact on the hypothesis gained support. Similarly, 2018, 19, all that we have the evidence, we can actually share it with you later also. But all this evidence now starts. We are not saying that the geology has completely found it or the science has found it, but now there is a started indication that such and such flood would have happened. Along with the geological observation, now the genetical science in 2015 has found the bottlenecks, population bottlenecks. So these are indirect evidences to the Noah's flood. Until 2015 actually this was a question, but in 2015 genetical study published in the genome.org, this is a peer reviewed journal which says that there is a bottleneck of the population that happened. So while there is not absolutely scientific evidence, in the sense science itself is in progress, so we would not expect the science to explain everything in the Noah's, either in the ark or in the date or in the flood, but there are certainly indications that such a things would have happened, and we would rather wait for the science to catch up. And regarding the Eve, there are again different explanations. We are not looking, see, Bible has the briefest possible comment on either the creation of the world or the creation of the human beings. But in the briefest comment, it has a profound implications.
And the accuracy.
And the accuracy. So there are, again, you may have read all those books in the...
Your 2 minutes, I'm sorry, 2 minutes are up. But actually speaking, Siddharth, there would be two questions actually. You asked the first about Noah and the second about Eve's rib, Eve being formed. So would you like to count that as a second question, or do you want to?
Sure.
Is that okay with you?
Go ahead.
So then he can take the time. Would that be okay? All right. So that would count as Siddharth's second question, or do you want to change it, Siddharth?
No, it's right. Okay. Keep the second question. The first was how does I don't think I think he misunderstood my question though. I didn't ask when it happened or what does science say about it. My question was how did all the living species fit inside Noah's ark? That was my question. Not when it happened or whether science discovered it or not. That was not my question. And my second question was how do you explain Eve being born out of Noah's rib?
Adam's rib, yeah.
Adam's rib, yeah. Adam's rib, you mean?
Adam's rib, sorry. Yeah.
Right. So again, to clarify the first question, as I said, if you are looking at the dimension, see, when you say all species, the biblical language of all, whether it is the continuously when you look up to the end of like a Revelation, all doesn't mean that all as in the every single aspect of species. Second, there is a question of species. How are we defining species now, and how the Bible defines the species then? So when on these 2 points, all and the species, if you take it into consideration that all that was required for the Noah to survive after the flood, that would be a very well acceptable proposition. That would be a very well acceptable proposition for Noah's ark to have all the species that is required for the survival of the humans, the survival of the Noah after the flood to come. But you are coming to the later question, the second question on the Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve, again, Siddharthji, as we said, the intent of the Bible, if it was to explain scientifically the Adam and Eve creation, it would have gone into much details. But what is given in the briefest possible way, that gives a profound meaning that may not be always pointing to details of the science, because as we said, science was not the primary intent. And second, why it is impossible to have the human being a special creation from the man itself. In fact, that very incident of Genesis 2, as you might know, historically led to the discovery of chloroform, the discovery of operation, and the discovery of how while in the operation that you can actually do this thing was inspired by the Bible on this. While the Bible hasn't gone into the details of how that creation happened, it is profoundly serving to call for the equality of both Adam and Eve, and as well as for other scientific discoveries as well. Praveen, if you want to add.
Yeah, and we also, in the beginning of my presentation itself, I appeal to, we do not believe in the universe explained only in the scientific method, but we take a stand that God intervenes in the creation, and that's called as miracle. And His creation is a miracle. Everything that He created is miracle. So we do not appeal to science to explain creation, but we appeal to, we observe in the creation and arrive at science. So that's what our explanation is. So the creation of Eve is part of God's creative miracle or miraculous creation.
All right. So that's your third question then, Siddharthji?
No, it's my. We need to.
Actually,
let me finish his questions, then you can.
Okay.
Or Siddharthji, do you want them to ask the next question? Then you can do a back and forth. How would you like? Are you okay with this?
Yeah, I think let them ask. That's this back and forth, you know.
Okay, great.
A similar question that you asked, something related to geology, I would like to go ahead and ask. It says Purvam Krita Yuge Tata Parvataha Pakshino Bhavan. Simply means in Krita Yuga, Parvata, which means mountains had these wings. And also in somewhere else, like in the Matsya Mahapurana, which I have it here, right here, Matsya Mahapurana, it says Ityete Parvata Vishtas Chatvaro Lavano Dadim. Simply means Indra cut down on the wings of those Parvata. So how do you explain? Is it a mythology or it is geology? Because Parvata are part of basically the earth, and they are flying as if they fall on people. So Indra cut down its wings.
All right, over to you, Siddharth. 2 minutes. You can take some more because I believe even the Sakshi team went a bit over time in answering. So you can have some more time in answering. Take your time, Siddharth. Over to you.
Thank you. So as my dear friend Praveen and Jerry pointed out that three things when I asked them the questions. They pointed out that science is progressing. They have found something in support of the flood. They will find something more in the future. Number two, they pointed about that reinterpretation or understanding of scripture, because previously people may have misunderstood that how all the species were there, but maybe it meant that all the species which were required to sit in the boat were there. And thirdly, my friend pointed out how there can be miracles by God, and God can interfere, in which He can invoke laws. He can break and make laws as per the need and is the requirement of the pastime. So when we're understanding scripture, also fourthly he pointed out that the scriptures are brief. They don't necessarily have all the details. I'm not sure why they don't consider the Bible through a different lens, whereas they consider Puranas through a different lens when it comes to understanding such difficult passages of the book. Like my friend brother Praveen is pointing out this point of how come the mountains have wings, and it sounds very dangerous. Hey, you're walking around and mountains falls on your head. You're like dead, man. Come on, I have to run away from this flying mountain. So it indeed is the case that the Puranas are explaining phenomena which we cannot imagine right now in our current situation. But we have to be open when we come to understanding the Puranas. That is it a possibility? Is it possible? Well, why not? It can be possible. Is it possible in our world? Maybe not, but maybe in other worlds it's possible. Why not? What restricts us from saying that in another world this may be a reality where the mountains do have wings, and they were cut down, their wings were cut down by Indra. Everything which we see in the scripture and everything which we see with the eyes may not align at the current moment. However, through our subjective experience of the scripture and through some objective experience, we have some faith in the scripture, and on that faith we are ready to give it a try. And as my friend also pointed out earlier, whether it be Bible or the Puranas, they're not meant to be textbooks on science. They're textbooks for metaphysical realm. They're textbooks for self-realization, for seeking love of God. And that's what they primarily discuss. Not necessarily how does the mountains use wings or how the wings were cut down. That's not the primary purpose of the scripture.
All right, thank you, Siddharth, for that response. And so I'll give Sakshi team the second question, and the third question back to Siddharth for asking. So, Sakshi team, when you're ready, the second question for you. 60 seconds. Yeah, over to you, Jerry. Your time starts. 60 seconds.
So, Siddharthi, I have raised this question in the presentation itself, but you haven't touched it. Bhagavad Purana, book 3, chapter 32, sloka 2 to 3, which says that the moon is part of the Swarloka. And Adaraniya Srila Prabhupada very clearly said if people have landed in the moon, then Krishna, ISKCON, entire ISKCON is bogus. But it is a scientifically proven, scientifically attested that people have landed in the moon without worshipping ancestors and in the suit that the Prabhupada has rejected. So, do you accept that Prabhupada's statement that now, since the people have landed in the moon, that ISKCON, not only ISKCON, actually the entire Hinduism has become bogus, or how do you resolve that?
Very, very interesting point, and you quoted from Srila Prabhupada. I really appreciate that you're quoting from a teacher whom I really appreciate. He is known for bringing the Krishna consciousness or the Hinduism all around the world. He single-handedly started the ISKCON movement and opened more than 108 centers. And his statements are very important for us because they lay down the foundation for ISKCON and for the, for my life also. So when he says that if, I have to scroll this statement, but I'm just paraphrasing it, that if the scientists have been able to land on the moon, then that goes against the very fabric or the statements of the Bhagavad Gita or the Bhagavad Purana, that moon can only be reached by people who have done pious activity in this lifetime, who have accrued good karma, and after death they can go there. We have to understand that the word used in the scriptures is Chandraloka, and the Chandraloka, as you mentioned yourself, is filled with lakes of nectar. So did the astronauts go to the Chandraloka where the descriptions are given of the Swargaloka? Did they go there? No. Did they go to the planet Moon? Yes. They don't have to be two contradictory statements. Like, for example, you may come to my house, which is 9756 Further Street maybe, and if you go to the first floor and you look for me, my name is Siddharth, and you say, hey, where's Siddharth? You won't find me. You have to go up the stairs and then you would see me. Similarly, somebody can go to the moon and still not experience the Chandraloka, which is, as I made the point earlier, for that somebody has to understand physics, somebody has to understand higher dimensional physics. Now you may keep saying, why keep bringing higher dimensional physics? Well, my dear friend, that's the reality in the modern science, higher dimensional physics. That's how the latest theories in modern science are coming up with, and that's the means by which people are studying modern world and the world around us. So that's what I bring it up here to explain the phenomena, how the Chandraloka is different from moon. And that's how I reconcile the statements of Srila Prabhupada and the statements of the scripture and our observation.
Thank you. So, Brother Siddharth, that brings you to your third and final question. Please, go ahead.
Okay, so my third and final question is this, that when it comes to Bible, the Holy Bible, one is ready to give it a benefit of doubt, and I noticed that Brother Jerry and Brother Praveen spent a lot of time explaining it and understanding it and giving different interpretations to it and also thinking about it. But when it comes to Puranas, why do you separate the Puranas see Puranas from a different lens? What makes you think that Purana is also not a book meant for increasing love of God? When it comes to the Bible, you say it's a book on love of God and not primarily on science. Why do you consider Puranas a different book? Why don't you see it from the same lens?
That's a very vital question. Look forward to your response.
Yeah, why we look at Puranas differently and why is double standards? I mean, if you put the question straight, it is not double standards. We approach Bible also with the same integrity, with the same inquisitiveness, and with the same questions of facts. If Bible is talking mythology, we call it mythology. If the Bible talks about miracle, we call it miracle. If the Bible talks about science, we call it science. But Puranas, as I read to you in the beginning itself, the Bhagavad Purana, the purpose of Bhagavad Purana, as you are reiterating a couple of times, about spirituality, about knowing God, etc., is not what I find in Bhagavad Purana. It says in Bhagavad Purana, the purpose of writing Bhagavad Purana is atra sargo visargasthanam poshanam yutaya. That's what the purpose of Bhagavad Purana is. It is trying to teach us science. So we are approaching it in the scientific lens. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, just to add to that, as Praveen rightly said, we are going by what Bhagavad Purana claims for itself. Bhagavad Purana, when any person reads, it actually says that what are the subjects that it is going to cover. And those subjects which it is going to cover, so we will apply the standards of those science. Whereas when it comes to Bible also clearly states for itself what is it going to teach. And we read in Hebrews chapter 1, 2 and 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 16, we have read very clearly it is for the righteous living. It is not meant to teach the science. If it was meant to teach the science, the person whom God should have taught is Adam. Adam was the first person whom God should have taught the science. But to Adam, in Genesis chapter 2:19, God said, observe. And through observation, he was asked to name the first basic act of science is a taxonomy, or the naming of the things. So biblical Bible guides us to do the science through observation. It doesn't claim to teach the science. If it doesn't claim to teach the science, why will I go and do the scientific methodology? But whereas Puranas claims to teach the scientific subjects, hence we have to.
Yes, your time's up. Yeah. All right, so thanks for that answer, Jerry. So over to you for your final question for the day.
Okay, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Siddharth, for that question. That was a good question.
Yes.
And let me follow the same question. As I read in Sri Shuka Vacha, basically, what the purpose of Srimad Bhagavata Purana is. So you keep on. I mean, in the previous answer, you said science is not science. It may happen. It might not happen. In the different world, it happens. In our world, it may not happen. Stuff like that. But science. We remember that the title of the debate is Puranas in the Holy Bible, which is more scientific. So if we can please come back to the science. Science is not may or may not. Science is facts. Science is, how do we... so, now, looking at that, you presented a lot of numbers. Do you also look at them as may or may not? When we presented you some facts like, a serpent carrying earth, or when you dig into the earth, you go find a horse or a thief from Ramayana. So the numbers you took from the same Puranas are facts, but the incidents that we are presenting it to you from the same Puranas are fiction, or maybe it's a different interpretation. It is maybe or may not be science. How do you respond?
So the information which is, let me see first. I'm audible. Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, sure. So the information which is given in the Puranas, all the information which is stated in the Puranas, I take it to be truth. Because as I said, mentioned, that there are two ways of getting knowledge. One way of getting knowledge is ascending, other is descending. Ascending is taking knowledge just by experimentation. And that can take you only so far. Like, if I want to find out who's my father, I can, follow the ascending process and ask every man on the planet Earth, who's my father? And maybe may not get to an answer. That's how science works. So if you're looking for an empirical way to understand the Puranas or anything about the Puranas, you'll also get an answer may or may not. However, if I go to the mother and ask who's my father, the mother can rightly point out, that's your father. And I'll accept it right away. So similarly, the Puranas are like the mother. They are teaching us the knowledge, and I accept it as it is where it's stated. Now, empirical or the scientist may accept some of those things right now and may not accept some things right now. But I showed in my presentation the things which they have come to accept are so extraordinary. In my presentation, I showed that the Puranas have these a number of dates which are scientists have very recently found in their analysis, which shows that my mother, Vedas and Puranas, have been correct all this while. And I personally do not differentiate between the Bible and the Puranas. I take them both to be holy scriptural texts, and I see them from the same lens. And I find them to be of the same value, which is a value, the main goal being love of God, love of Supreme Lord.
Okay, so that's a very nice response, very amicable response, Siddharth, and I appreciate you for that. So, so with that, we come to the end of the rapid crossfire between the two teams. And I again appreciate everyone for being there, watching the show. And now we are coming to the conclusion part. The conclusion is 5 minutes each. And here the speaker gets a chance to summarize the thoughts, give some ending things for the audience to hear and to think about and go back. And as everybody goes back again, it was not meant to hurt anybody's feelings. If it is meant to hurt you, if it hurt your feelings, you shouldn't be watching such shows. This is more of an academic and learning by nature. So we'll start off again with the esteemed ISKCON panel. And again, thank you, Siddharth, for being such a great person to discuss with and for your very courteous presentation and responses. So I look forward to hearing your concluding statements. Over to you, 5 minutes.
Thank you. So thank you, Rakshana TV and the Sakshi Apologetics team for accepting my offer to do a debate on this subject matter, what's more scientific. In my presentation, I showed how today the Puranas have an amazing chronology, and that chronology speaks about significant events in the history of Earth, solar system, and universe. I published my research in European Journal of Science and History. It's a peer review process through which the paper got accepted, and they understood and they accepted this presentation that the Bhagavad Purana and the Vayu Purana and the other Puranas, when they're studied together and the dates are tabulated, we find that the Puranas have information which is stunningly matching with the latest scientific discoveries in the field of cosmology, astrophysics, paleontology, and a number of other fields. Primarily, I discussed 3 data points. 1, the age of the universe. 2, the age of the solar system. And 3rd, the date for the Earth's greatest mass extinction, the Matsya Avatar Pralaya. I showed that how these dates are stated in the Puranas, and these dates are very close, stunningly close to the modern scientific dates. On the basis of these dates, I claimed that the Puranas are a source of scientific knowledge, where science means something which is testable and something which is repeatable. The Puranas are primarily a scientific book on self-realization, on finding out who we are and what's our relationship with the world and with the Lord. Their primary subject matter is the process of meditation, and they recommend that we spend our lives centered around God's names and God's values. I was presented with a number of questions where my opposition had difficulty in reconciling and understanding the statements from the Puranas, and I responded that there may be statements in the Puranas which are not understandable to us right now, or empirically verifiable right now. However, modern science also has a number of theories which are not currently verifiable, such as the black hole. Nobody has personally seen a black hole. It's a mathematical equation, mathematical proposition, which fills the holes in the theories, which provides the support for the theories. Similarly, the Puranas also have statements which are not verifiable at the present moment, but the statements which are verifiable have shown themselves to be extraordinarily in agreement with the modern science. And therefore, I invite the viewers and my opposition to give it a benefit of doubt, to give Puranas a further read and look within it, not for scientific information, but for a process of relationship with the Lord, for finding our reunion with the Lord. Thank you.
Thank you again, Siddharth. That was really very sweet conclusion. So over to the Sakshi team for their concluding statements, and let's see. Go ahead, Sakshi team, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Siddharth ji, for inviting us and also engaging with us this evening. You said everything in Purana is true, and as your mother points out to a person and say he's your father, that's how you would take the information of Purana as true. And I appreciate you for your commitment towards that. And we also, as you suggested, spend some time investigating. That's the reason you see these books here, and we took it very seriously. And however, what I find in this presentation is we have presented that Bible gives you the paradigm for science, and Puranas, the paradigm of Puranas, especially in Bhagavat Purana, as it claims to teach science, we unfortunately could not reconcile, as you rightly said, because it is factually not there. When we asked the question to you about the numbers you took, all the 3 or 4 pointers that you made in your book are factual, whereas when we talk about a flying wing, mountains with flying wings, drinking semen and getting pregnant, semen dropping out and becoming gold and silver, that is not reconcilable. That's not geology at all. So I would look forward for more discussions with you and see if we can learn more from Puranic, and we will be able to reconcile that. Jerry?
Yeah, thank you so much, Siddharthi, for your time. In conclusion, let me say that Bible, while it is being the briefest statement ever in any of the ancient scriptures on the this creation of the cosmos, creation of human beings, it is the most profoundest to give a paradigm to the modern science. In fact, this is now well established among the historians of science. In fact, Siddharthi started saying that the Christians started or the Christian empire started attacking the scientists. That is a myth. That is a complete myth. Now, I am not sure it is considered as one of the myths of science that Christianity never persecuted the scientists. In fact, if you look at the 52 founders of the modern science, 50 of them were believing Christians. How are they persecuted? They are not persecuted. Now, Siddharthi comes up all the time saying that higher dimension, higher dimension. I have very clearly said dimensions in the 3-dimensional space are up, down, north, south, east and west. That is how clearly Agni Purana chapter 108 has described the earth. That is in 3-dimension, and all the numbers are wrong. It is not hyperdimensional. It is 3-dimensional blunders. That Siddharthi has never looked into it. Now I have asked the question, Siddharthi, on the moon. Siddharthi said Chandraloka is different from the moon. Siddharthi, the very explanation in my presentation, I said the Rahu who came to the eclipses, is it Chandraloka or is it the moon? They were speaking about the same moon. That is what they have called the Chandraloka. Waning and waxing of moon. Ancestors, he is eating it. They thought that it was the ancestors eating it. Now we have landed there and we know that there is neither ancestors nor karma and nor there is any nectar. There is no hyperdimension there. It is within the 3-dimension, and their explanations were completely wrong. I would appreciate that you take the same stand of Srila Prabhupada and say that if the people have landed in the moon, ISKCON is bogus. Not only ISKCON, but even entire Hinduism is bogus. Instead of accepting that, why are you trying to evade the clear this thing? And we again, when we come to the other explanations, I have clearly pointed out these 3 data points that Siddharthi puts forward is by twisting the Puranas itself. The solar system, the age of the age of the universe, he has to bring in a new or a new discovery, as he says, which nobody else has found. But I said, if he continues to read the same Vayu Purana, he will understand that nothing is disintegrated. It is like a destruction of a building. Now, the destruction of a building is not disintegration of matter. Again, Siddharthi has not touched it. You clearly say that Siddharthi is actually evading or reinterpret or rephrasing. He is only delaying the question further. When you probe further into Siddharthi's answers, you will clearly say that see that Siddharthi is only delaying the responses and not answering the responses. In contrast, we have always taken the stand that Bible provides the paradigm not only for the science, but if you look at all the modernity itself, the very creation of human beings which you raised, that is the first, profoundest and the only ancient statement to say that the human beings are created equal, not from head, toe, the shoulder, the thigh and the toe. That is the first and the foremost And that has changed the world. Now the world accepts that every human being is created. Bible in the briefest and the profoundest way changed the thinking of the world. It was not given to teach us science, but it was given to change our human behavior, and it has done profoundly. And thereby I conclude, Bible is the paradigm giver of the modern science as well as the other fields of modernity, and Puranas are the antithesis of it. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Jerry. And audience, that brings me to the conclusion. And I really appreciate ISKCON for this thing, and I really request Siddharji for more such discussions, and maybe with a more extensive panel from his side, from the Christian side. And let's get into the depths of these calculations, the way it is done, or maybe into more diverse ways, not just on the science part, or maybe parts of the theology as to what makes more sense, or how it tallies up, or something. It could be so so very much interesting, or the karmic theory, or the atonement theory, what makes more sense, or what is a better standard for living. There could be so many topics that you have also proposed for discussion.
Yeah,
please.
May I make a suggestion here?
Yeah, please.
I think I like the idea of having a panel because I appreciate that your desire to bring these questions out and having a discussion on the subject matter. Right. I think in future maybe we can have panels where we can discuss, where we can take questions from the audience, and
that's what
the same question can be asked to all the panels. Like suppose somebody can ask a question, how do you explain sin? And then say a Christian panel can answer one, ISKCON panel can answer one, a Muslim panel can answer it, same thing, and let people hear the answers. Yep. Another person can ask, hey,
that's really awesome.
How do you explain God's being this, that? Like, people can ask questions, and let the questions could be such that any philosophy can answer it, and let's see what kind of answers we get. I think there are so many discussions going on right now on materialism, how to make money, how to this, how to that. We can have some more discussion on theology, about God and God's ways and God's traditions. And there's definitely a need for it.
Absolutely. Actually, Siddharji, as you, I'm sure you recollect that, the original intention was to have an audience engagement session also, but then based on the ISKCON request, it was changed. So the audience interaction part was dropped out. But I really respect you, and I admire your zeal for pursuit of the truth. So let's be in touch, and I request Praveen also to be in touch with Siddharth brother, and let us organize more such discussions. This was a great starting point. Let's not stop it. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's have further discussions. Maybe a part 2. I'm just talking on the top of my head. It's between you two guys. I'm just coordinating this out, right? I'm just sitting in between, watching the time. Why not? So
no. We need somebody like you who's a sweet moderator.
Thank you. That's very kind of you. Gracious. Thank you. So perhaps we can have part 2 of this thing, because there are so many open ends from the Christian side, your side, from this. Yes.
Yeah, there are other topics which were suggested. In fact, we can go with other topics as also. And Siddharji himself has.
Let's discuss. Yeah.
Siddharji himself has.
Email and we
Sorry, go ahead. Actually.
Sorry, go ahead, Siddharji, please.
I think let's discuss more about the emails, the topics which we want to discuss, and a proper setup. And I'm open to it because I love the as you mentioned also, the amicable way in which we are dealing on this subject matters, and these are topics of deep discussion. Yes. 1 or 2 hour discussion may not be enough.
Absolutely.
And we may want to have more discussions, and the society needs it. Society should hear different details of theology and topics about related to God, because right now there is so much social media about how to become smarter, how to be more beautiful, and politics, and Elon Musk, Twitter, and all kinds of nonsense going on. But there is very less discussion on topic of God and God's world and God's creation, and I think that deserves a lot of discussion. Don't you think, Jerry and Praveen? What do you think?
Yes.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sounds like a plan. We should do it.
Sounds like a plan. And Siddharth,
we are in agreement. We are in agreement with that statement.
Yeah.
Totally. Actually,
Siddharth, and also in the previous emails, you mentioned about 10 or 11 topics already.
3 topics actually in different languages.
Yeah, in different languages.
Actually, we can explore those and then go further from that.
Yes.
And yes, Siddharth, and actually he repeated it 3 times, and I really liked what he said. That is, the whole world is pursuing about how to make more money, how to make more in stocks, or get more smarter, get more beautiful, and whatever be the case. And these are the topics which is concerned with the eternal. I say to my kids also, that in 100 years, everyone everyone knows you, and everyone is dead. Nobody would even know your name after just 100 years. And we spend so much time to take care of this 50, 60, 70 years that we live, and we just are so much engrossed in it, in useless waste of time. But we are not really concerned about matters of eternity. So I agree with you 100%, Siddharth. So I'll really look forward to this. I'm looking forward to hosting more of this. It's so fun to be between you guys, right? So thank you again, Siddharth, and please convey my get well soon, best wishes to Luke, and I'm sure he'll recover very soon, and we look forward to hearing from him too. Please do convey our regards to him. And thank you again that you got up pretty early for this debate, and we can post it.
Well, I do get up early, but thank you, Praveen, and your Naren and Jerry, for your time and your wonderful responses. I appreciate a good discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, and again to the audience. For the audience, again, do circulate out the link of this debate, which is being recorded and kept on the screen. And again, as in conclusion, this is not meant to hurt anyone. This, as you saw, this is why I believe ISKCON is known as the thinking, part of Hinduism, and that's where it's coming from, And I really appreciated hearing him, and he's so much upfront for discussions, and we have these other so-called, flag bearers of Hinduism just running away from any discussion, like Rajiv Malhotra, Agniveer, Neeraj Attri types, and so many others. And there we have Siddharth ready for a discussion. So hats off to ISKCON, and we look forward to more such discussions. And our best wishes to everyone watching this show. Stay blessed. Our best wishes to their family. Take care. God bless you. Bye-bye.